Majority Report with Sam Cedar.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Cedar.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Cedar.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It's Thursday, August 20th, 2020. I'm Matt Leck. It's another Matt, Brendan, Jamie, and Matt Thursday, broadcasting closer to the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal than ever before in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On today's program, a Throwback Michael interview with Marya Hannun and Sophie Spaan called When Europe Loved Islam, on the history of Muslims and Islam in Europe. Also on the program today, former Trump advisor Steve Bannon arrested on fraud charges in border wall fundraising scheme. It's always the people you least expect. Barack Obama assails Trump, asks us not to let him take our democracy away. In California, fires threaten 25,000 structures as the state runs low on firefighter personnel, given the prison population they typically use is dealing with COVID lockdowns. Trump calls QAnon people that love our country, by which he, of course, means people that support him. Trump also calls for a boycott of Goodyear for not being supportive enough. Facebook, who's more balanced than Goodyear is, removes hundreds of both QAnon and Antifa pages. Also, Utah Black Lives Matter protesters facing an outrageous possible life sentence for splashing red paint and broken windows. Also, as reports surface that Postmaster Louis DeJoy wants to kneecap postal banking by filling post offices with ATMs, it turns out his appointment was pushed by Steve Mnuchin, so not this apolitical appointment that some people might want you to think. And finally, Bibi Netanyahu learns how jealousy can loom in any opened relationship, feeling the pangs now that the U.S. and U of A have normalized relations, and Jared Kushner wants to sell F-35 combat jets to the UAE. All that and more on today's Majority Report. Brendan?
Matt, how you doing?
Doing all right. This is the fourth Michael Throwback Thursday we've done. It's good to be with you again. It's crazy how time kind of marches on, but I also wanted to mention there's a lot of activity going on in Bolivia. It looks like there's some negotiations going on between MAS and the Inez coup government, which has also called for the locking up of resistance leadership for participating in protests. So Michael would also want me to put that in the headlines. Anyway, now that I finally finished the headlines proper to a Michael Day, Brendan, how are you today?
I'm doing well, Matt. We got a beautiful day here in Brooklyn, and I think the rhythm and timing of your headlines has only gotten better and stronger in these 4 weeks.
Well, only can go up, I think. So I appreciate that. My facial hair has gotten a little bit worse. I realized I forgot to shave today, as if it was a Sam day. So don't judge me too much, folks. But all that aside, we are going to get right to the interview today. This is another one from my first year of producing Majority Report. And it's with Marya Hannun and Sophie Spaan, two academics who wrote an article, When Europe Loved Islam and Foreign Policy, I believe. And the thing about what I liked about Michael and what I got from Michael that I don't think you can get elsewhere on the left is an understanding of the new atheist movement. I came from new atheists. Christopher Hitchens was the first sort of big essay collection in politics I ever read. But you kind of soon learn the limitations of the new atheist type of let's look at what these horrible Muslims are doing now type of approach that a lot of people like to do. And Michael had like a more material, historically grounded analysis about that. Oops, I don't know what that sound was, but that wasn't ideological. Anyway, this is a good example of Michael's sort of well-rounded approach to these things. It's a wide-ranging interview on the influence of Islam in Europe before, our modern times of, how we think of it as an invader. Actually, the aristocrats embraced it to a certain extent too. But this is from May 10th, 2016. And Michael does this joint interview with Marya Hannun and Sophie Spaan. And I just want to say before we go to that, join themajority.report.com, become a member of this show, keep us sustained. It's tough out there if you're dealing with COVID stresses. Obviously, that's not for you. But if you're doing all right, join themajority.report.com and enjoy this interview Michael did.
I am Michael Brooks, and joining us now is Marya Hannun. She is a PhD student at Georgetown University. And Sophie Spaan, she is a PhD candidate at Utrecht University in the Netherlands. They are both studying Islamic and Arabic studies at their respective. When Europe Loved Islam. Thank you both for joining us.
Thanks for having us on the show.
Yeah, exactly.
Sophie, I want to start with you, but I'm going to go to both of you on this before we get to your article. There is a very powerful public discourse now on Islam, and it comes through a number of filters. Often on this show, we talk about Islam and Middle East issues, I would say, through primarily a policy lens that is informed by history, culture. There's also a predominant discourse, which is very trendy right now and very popular in sort of the world of Reddit and online, that kind of reduces Islam and religion generally to some sort of like scientific proposition that is correct or not. And of course, scientifically it's not correct. So therefore, Islam or Christianity or whatever is quote unquote wrong. I want to know from the perspective of somebody who actually studies this academically and historically, what is the mechanism through which you study Islam as an academic and an actual expert in the field? Sophie, I'm starting with you, but Marya, I want you to jump in right after.
Well, I think that if you study any sort of topic academically or more in depth, you'll find that everything is more complicated than it seems, and that there are different facets to a story, and that you can also not, there are many different types of Islam, there are many different types of religion. It's really hard to generalize too much. Besides that, I mean, I was trained originally as a historian, and I'm researching a very historical project, so I'm approaching it in that way as well. So in a specific context, specific time, specific actors. Mm-hmm. That would be, I think, my perspective on that.
Yeah, and just to echo what Sophie's saying, I mean, I think that the study of Islamic studies could mean so many things. So for some people, for some of my colleagues, that means studying Islamic law and the centuries of legal tradition that have developed around Islam. For some people, it's looking at practice, how those laws have been applied in practice. For some people, it is looking at the Quran and how the Quran is constructed and trying to understand the language. And for us, we're both more historians. We study intellectual history. And so we look at people who think about how Islam, is enacted in society through different kinds of political movements, through writing, through literature, and in society with the construction of Islamic institutions. And so to deny that Islam should be kind of engaged with is to deny, centuries of history and a whole, many facets of society.
So you're saying that to complete any, not just a PhD, but any type of academic course of study in these subject matters, you couldn't say, as an example, my thesis is Islam is bad ideas, supporting evidence, Richard Dawkins tweet, and other guy who doesn't have training in Islam with some selected quotes. That wouldn't work?
I probably wouldn't pass my dissertation.
You would make it to the doctorate that way.
Whoa. All right. Well, I guess we're all just regressive apologists, but I just wanted to kind of get that out of the way before we jump into this. So this is fascinating, and Marya, I'll start with you this time.
Okay.
This piece is When Europe Loved Islam, and there's two different tracks to this conversation. There's a political track and a cultural track. We're going to start culturally.
Great.
In the 1920s, you paint a picture of in Berlin and other important, intellectually rigorous and open European capitals and major cities of interest in Islam as something that is totally outside of discourse today, something more analogous to like the way some people might look at Buddhism, actually, as a religion that is more compatible with the modern world, that is more adaptive and responsive to present and modern conditions, and in reaction to a sort of exhaustion with Christianity and modernist projects at Europe at the time. How did Islam start to play that role in Europe in the 1920s, and then specifically, or actually just start with that, and then I'll go to Sophie. Go ahead.
One of the major trends we look at are the kind of movement of people and ideas through empire. And so in this period after World War I, there was a large influx of Muslims into some of these European capitals. There were many scholars, Muslim scholars, immigrants, travelers, and among these were the Ahmadiyya missionaries. So these are missionaries from the Punjab region of British India, and they constructed mosques, and they were very effective missionaries. And so one of the places we look at, and is sort of central to our article, is the Valmersdorf Mosque in Berlin. And you see it happening there, where there's this frustration with European sort of Christian society. In the wake of World War I, there's a lot of confusion, a lot of disillusionment with modernity and with the past. And so through the Ahmadiyya missions, you can see them tapping into this with their lectures on Islam and modernism and the future of humanity. And so I think that it was just a kind of active and very interesting intellectual climate at this time.
So, Sophie, to be clear, though, that this mission, and I want you to get more into the specifics of it, and also this idea that was popular at the time across the spectrum of political thought in Europe, of this notion of the new man. Fascists talked about it, socialists talked about it. But that this group from the Punjab was not saying, they weren't coming to Germany and saying the modern world is fallen and corrupted and we need to recreate some fantasized version of the 7th century. They were saying that Islam has a particular insight on how to modernize, which actually in some ways in that context was more egalitarian. There was a strong anti-racist bent. We won't get into this, but also this mission also was in the United States at this time and gained popularity with African Americans because of an anti-racist message. Get into the specifics of what they were saying and how it fit into a specific response to modernity.
Well, first of all, it was a context where in Berlin at that time, there was a space for a lot of sort of people, activists, students who wanted to act against Muslim students, activists wanted to act against British and French imperialism. Mm-hmm. So in that sense, there was sort of a bohemian site for them to come together. And the Ahmadiyya were not the only Muslim actors in Berlin at this time. There were different groups, but they were a very important one, and they were a group with a mosque. Mm-hmm. And their sort of vision of modernity was also linked to the First World War and the devastating effect that had on Europe and specifically on Germany. So there were many people who felt disillusioned, who felt just disappointed and almost as if Christianity had failed and the war had been a result. So there was a space for these kind of new ideas, and there was a lot of interest in different types of spiritualism, not just Islam, but many, different outlets for these sort of feelings. And Ahmadiyya were very much trying to promote a very rational, modern, progressive Islam. And that's what they wrote about. And they did this, of course, also to gain converts. But, they felt that this was something that would resonate with all these European intellectuals, which it did. But they had a sort of an intellectual conversation there in the Wilmersdorf Mosque with people from all different backgrounds. So that's what they tapped into. And their magazines, in the one in Berlin and also in Woking, and they published also from British India, they had a very wide reach, and these magazines were read in many different places all over Europe and also in the Muslim world. They were also kind of a controversial movement in a way, but at this time these sort of identities were quite fluid, and they did have a conversation in the 20s with a lot of different people.
What is, Marya, I want you to talk specifically to this concept of the new man and how these Islamic movements responded to it and put their own specific spin on it.
Yeah, so one thing we talk about in our piece is just how the new man was this sort of philosophical concept that was quite trendy at this time, and it really focused on the individual, and we see it in even Nietzsche's Übermann as this person who would be kind of excel in society or a leader. And then in the case of Hugo Marcus, who was one of the important converts in Berlin at this time, and he was actually a gay Jewish philosopher, and he was engaging with all of these people, Spinoza and Kant and Nietzsche and Goethe. And for him, the new man, this sort of utopian ideal of the human being, what was found in Islam. And so he kind of looked at the trajectory of monotheism through Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and saw in Islam the sort of logical conclusion or progression of these monotheisms. And therefore, Islam became the kind of spiritual foundation for the society in which this new man would be, or this sort of ideal man of the future would be constructed. And in his other writings, he really focuses on the kind of progressive and intellectual message of Islam. So another piece that I read by him, he talks about the Hadith or sayings of the Prophet, and he uses the fact that these sayings were recorded and passed down through generations to show that in the East, sort of interiority and the individual were so important for such a long time. And this is a relatively new concept in Europe. So he kind of is really focusing on the philosophical, individualist, and very sort of modern message of Islam.
So, Sophie, I can already hear the kind of heads exploding over that sort of comment, that there was this sense of interiority in Islam and in the East. Now, I think obviously there are distinctions, and we have to sort of draw differentiations, and there are different models of government and different ways, people were individuated in politics and religion for that matter. But we have no discourse and understanding of that for most people. When you hear the idea that there was individuality in Islam, people would either have no reference point for it, or they would say that you're making some type of, kind of like postmodern working backwards apology and making up something, projecting backwards into something that wasn't there to begin with. So can you give us more specifics in terms of what that individuality looked like and how it was retrieved and used in these conversations in the 20s in Europe?
Well, see, in this specific context, there were, they were very much trying to be part of Europe. Mm-hmm. And they were trying to approach Europe in a way. Look, there were many different sort of Islam reformist movements at this time, also in the 19th century. So this was not like a completely new idea, but people were conceptualizing new ideas and looking in the Quran and looking in different places to find like ideas of how Islam would be completely aligned with new technologies and all these kind of things. That was already before. And the Ahmadiyya really were trying to show people in Europe, like, you can be European and you can be Muslim. And there's no, the one doesn't exclude the other. So, and someone like Hugo Marcus is also interesting because he looks at Islam not necessarily through a genealogy of Islamic philosophers, but and Islamic scholars, but he looks very much at Islam through this idea of all these European philosophers, which is kind of turning that whole idea around as well and going further into showing that European side in a way, rather than only looking towards the East. But then other people did other things. So there's a huge variation as well in the way that people were approaching these intellectual conversations. But there was this idea that we're looking towards the future, and we're taking some texts and we're taking ideas and we're trying to create the best future in Europe, and that would have included Islam in that way.
Yeah, and I do think that, the individual and the individual's relationship with society was such an important question in the post-war World War I and sort of interwar period. And so, we even see it earlier in the history of kind of European philosophy. And so tapping into that, I think the Ahmadiyya mission really was tapping into those questions as well, and kind of looking at how Islam could help facilitate or explain how the individual functions in society and is part of this modern society.
Okay, so let's move to the political track. You make another sort of interesting historical point here, and there's two sides of it, both of which we'll get to. That first of all, at this time in history, the European governments were pretty partial towards Muslims in some respects, and partial towards them as kind of like people that they wanted to be local partners in colonial enterprises. As an example, seemed to be certainly preferential treatment for Muslims versus Jews, as an example, in certain fighting regiments for European colonial powers. And then the other aspect was that the European powers were sort of anticipating and seeing that Islam was going to be utilized in anti-colonial struggles. So there's kind of a dual track that are connected here. But Marya, start by explaining how European governments, very specifically in this period of time, empowered Islam, built mosques. Now there's a debate on banning minarets and banning Islamic symbols in many European countries. This was a time when the public coffers were used to build and subsidize Islam.
So this is definitely, Sophie can speak more to this, but in the wake of World...
I'm just kidding, go ahead. Yeah.
In the wake of World War I, there was such a... during World War I, we see the colonial powers, France and Britain, using their Muslim soldiers and trying to court the favor of Muslim citizens in the colonies. A large percentage of their colonial subjects were Muslim. And so trying to kind of gain favor with these populations in the sort of global power struggle at the time, but then also having Muslims serve in the army in World War I was a big part of these two great powers' agenda. And so we do see some preferential treatment towards Muslims that we talk about in our piece, which is quite interesting. So these regiments would have imams within them, embedded within the regiments. And instead of pork and wine, they were given couscous and coffee and mint tea. So they were being sort of favored in this way, in a way that Jewish troops, for example, were not. In terms of the mosque, we talk about the Paris Mosque, which was built in the 1920s in the wake of World War I, and ostensibly to honor the Muslim soldiers who had served in World War I. And that angered a lot of the country's Catholics, who saw it as sort of a perversion of laïcité, or the secularism that France was supposedly adhering to. And Sophie can talk more about this. It was quite an interesting period in France's history.
Yes, Sophie, go ahead.
Well, I think in general that this definitely the Muslim soldiers who fought in the First World War is also one of these really parts of history that seems to be forgotten by a lot of people. Not only on the within the Middle East, but also in Europe, there were many soldiers. Britain sent almost 140,000 Indian troops to the Western Front. Many of them were Muslim, because a lot of them came from later Pakistan. Mm-hmm. France also deployed about 500,000 colonial subjects on European battlefields, of whom also many were Muslim. And these are things that, that are important to remember. It was also the first time that there was such a big presence of Muslims on European soil in that way. And they had special treatment in these regiments. And there was very specifically also propaganda during the First World War the Germans opened a POW camp in Wunsdorf, where they built a mosque and where they tried to convince soldiers, Muslim soldiers that they captured, to join their side. So in response, France also built a mosque for their soldiers. So there was kind of this propaganda battle going on. And what Germany was really trying to accomplish was trying to get Muslims in France and Britain's colonies to rise up against them, which they saw as, a good tool for them to hurt these other countries. But in the end, there was no such that didn't really happen. Mm-hmm. But that's an important part of history that also shouldn't be forgotten. And the Mosquée de Paris was opened in 1926, really with this idea to honor these soldiers. But in effect, what ended up happening was that mostly it was targeted at elite North Africans and French tourists in a way, as it is today. You can still go there and drink a mint tea and buy a rug. It was very much. People were, the North Africans who were working in Paris, they were not living in the same areas, and they were definitely not making enough money to go visit the hammam there or go to the restaurant. Right. And their factory times didn't align with the mosque. So it was clearly sort of a colonial power show.
Right. Sophie, continuing with you, then there's this other track where colonial powers are also anticipating that Islamic politics is starting to emerge. And again, I think this is important. I'd like you both to speak on this to kind of distinguish. When people hear Islamic politics today, and, justifiably, frankly, from public media consumption, you think on one end of obviously what's associated with the sort of, horrific terrorism of ISIS or Al-Qaeda. You might think of Iran, which there's a much more complicated history there. But these are specific tracks that involve terrorism, that involved sort of, more on the right side of the political spectrum in some respects. But at this time, Islam was emerging as the same way that, Indians might be re-embracing Hinduism, or people in, Ceylon or Thailand were re-engineering Buddhism in certain ways and actually doing a similar project with Buddhism. And there was a Western interest in Buddhism being a kind of modern rational project, and but also reinventing all native traditions in the arsenal to reverse colonialism. There's nothing specific or special about Islam in that regard. And so the Europeans are also seeing that this religion can be an ally and a tool of colonial holding, essentially, or it can be flipped back in their face. So they're trying to anticipate that as well. And then through this conversation, we'll see some parallels in policy towards Muslims today.
Well, yeah, in this period, this fear of pan-Islam, which was also a bit older, that just didn't emerge after the First World War, but had a lot to do with colonial anxiety. And you get these independent movements, for instance, in France, that are very much that link independence also to Islam. So this fear about it has a lot to do with that. And there were a lot of tools of control in this sense. The French authorities kept a really close eye on all these different organizations and through different organs, like, for instance, a sort of not a trade union, but an area where they would go to get work in an office. And there would always be, intelligence. People would be watching them because, Islam was almost also a tool of control in that way. And it's hard to compare. I understand why, but it's still a bit difficult to compare to the situation today. Again, these colonial empires were so big and had such a big influence on politics and policy, and we don't really have that right now, or not in the same way. Mm-hmm. But I
guess there is some. Yeah, there's this sort of idea of when you fear something, you can take steps to control it. And I think in a way we see that today with the kind of movement towards having something called, and I put this in kind of scare quotes, British or European Islam, as if there can be an Islam engineered in Europe that's Europe friendly and friendly to the kind of public and society of Europe, and that involves training imams in the Netherlands and in France, and sort of state-sponsored training of imams. And all of these kind of ideas they reflect a similar mentality, which is maybe the government's wresting control over something that they fear or don't understand. And I think we see it today, and we also saw it in that period, though it looks very different, and maybe the entities being feared are very different.
Right. That was actually that's the parallel I was looking for, Marya, and I want you to expand on that because, I think it's important to be fair and be rigorous in this conversation that there is, so one of the important sort of things that you guys both note in your article is that the discourse on Islam in Europe today the frame is wrong because Islam is not new to Europe. And there is this very broad and deep and textured history here that involves the colonial experience, that involves migration, that involves all of these countercultural movements and anti-colonial movements and everything else. But at the same time, in Europe today, you have a challenge where all of these things are sort of happening concurrently. You have the rise of the right. You have tremendous bigotry and xenophobia and everything else that is expressed towards Muslims and people coming from the Middle East or North Africa. And then you also do have, in fact, we can be quite clear, I think, the distinction between an Islamic-inspired anti-colonial politics versus why would someone be drawn to joining ISIS? That's an entirely different sort of conversation. But we can also acknowledge, I guess, to be real here, that there are legitimate security concerns and there are legitimate conversations about balancing multiculturalism and national identity and everything else. And so I guess what I'm curious about is what do you both see, and Marya, I'll start with you, from this research and from being grounded in this history that can at least start to get us to ask the right questions and have the right sort of frame so we can start dealing with these challenges more intelligently now?
Oh, big question.
Always a big question.
So I think one thing that, for me, this research really illuminates is that not only is Islam not new to Europe, but the relationship between Europe and all of these different kinds of Islam and Muslims and converts is so complex. And sort of thinking about the past, we see some trends that are still helpful in explaining things today. And so one of those trends is this kind of otherizing of Islam and sort of the relationship between Islam and the state, which was never simple, never easy, and is really related to the colonial experience. And it's something that I think if we ignore this past, we're unable to truly understand Islam today. And if we start the narrative in the 70s or the 60s, we're also neglecting a really important part of history. And I think doing that makes it seem like there's this new Islam phenomenon that is occurring in a void. And obviously, we know that's not true. It's a very long and kind of compelling history. And so I just think beginning to look at a kind of both a broader framework for understanding the relationship between Europe and Islam and Muslims in Europe and European Muslims. And I mean, in the piece, we don't even talk about Muslims in Eastern Europe, which is a totally different and really important and historic Muslim communities. But I do think that one of the problems that both of us, I'm speaking for Sophie, but have with the discourse is that it so flattens Islam and Muslim identity, and really the kind of fear of global terrorism or Al-Qaeda or ISIS really sort of drowns out other versions and expressions of Islam in society, and even political Islam. And those things are very important to engage with if we really want to understand how the world works.
And I just have to interject, Sophie, I want to get your thoughts on this, but to be really, fair and upfront with some of this audience, I would just underline that I think, it's one thing to have what you can call, frankly, a more high-minded intellectual commitment to do what you're talking about. But I just want to also argue from the practical perspective that even if you were to say that your prime concerns with these things were terrorism and were, preserving social liberalism with, migration from Islamic countries or whatever other concerns that you're kind of expressing and dealing with, these are the conversations and the groups and the complexity that you need to have in order to formulate the right solutions and the right responses. Just sitting back and, not liking the Quran or quoting some people who have no idea what they're talking about is not going to do the very practical job. So I think it's important to underline that this isn't just it's not just a high-minded motivation. This is the actual work of, even if your prime interest is just counterterrorism, which is quite an important issue. But you need to engage in all of these things in a serious and rigorous way to solve for all of the concerns that you might have from recognizing the complexity and vitality of over 1 billion people on the planet to dealing with terrorism. Sophie, go ahead.
Well, I would link to that in a way that also, if you're a policymaker, historicizing and contextualizing these issues is really important, because otherwise you might not fully understand what you're actually talking about, right. And you might not have the tools to then find the right measures to do something, positive. And in that way, this part of because it's European history, that's what's important about it as well. It's not, even when we talk about Muslim Spain, often that's talked about as in within Islamic studies, Middle Eastern history, where you're thinking, well, actually, it's also European history. And this part in the interwar period, where there was so much, conversation going on and a different engagement with Islam, is also part of European history. These mosques are in the centers of these cities. Well, the Valmersdorf Mosque is, in the middle of Berlin. It's very visual in that way as well. And if we don't forget this, and if we keep if we talk about it in this way and acknowledge this longer relationship, it does change the conversation that we have when, today when people say, oh yeah, Muslims who came in the 60s and the 70s. Well, that's not the case. These other people were there before there, and they also had ideas and interaction with Europeans and maybe, became European in a way.
Absolutely. The piece is When Europe Loved Islam. Sophie Spaan, Marya Hannun. I appreciate your time. Both of you, thank you very much for joining us on the Majority Report.
Thank you for having us.
All right, there you are, folks. Some classic Michael pronunciation at the end there. This reminded me of like a year after this came out, Dunkirk, the movie came out. And there was like a Gamergate style conniption over actually, no, I'm getting something confused. Basically, there weren't any Muslim soldiers in the Dunkirk movie, but the truth is that there was a lot from India and they just weren't there. And that's what I always think about with the Gamergate controversies. Like, how dare you make this World War II about like a non-white European, right? Like, this is actual reality, folks.
Give me the history I'm comfortable with, not the actual one.
Yeah, exactly. This is the crazy thing about this stuff is it's people preferring the myths to the actual history.
Of course,
yeah, and it's very, and they act like they're the adults. I want to learn my history from statues of guys on horses. We'll welcome Jamie and Matt here. You have something else to say there?
It also reminded me of the interview we had with Gerald Horne a few weeks ago. And the relationship of, Muslims in North Africa to the Spanish. Well.
Right. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, Gerald Horne is amazingly prolific guy. Yeah, 100%. I would love that. I mean, imagine if, I often think about and I don't know if Gerald Horne does a lot of teaching. I don't imagine when he would have time to. But all these guys who both teach and write, just to have their lectures taped and recorded and available online would be selfishly something I would love to have.
He also just seems like a very engaging professor.
Oh yeah, he's one of the best.
History professors are the best. I'm biased though.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that. There's plenty of examples. Harvey K, of course, another one that comes to mind. Just very good. I mean, we selfishly we appreciate it because they're good at media too, and it makes our jobs a lot easier. But Jamie and Matt, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Hey guys, how you doing today?
Doing okay.
And the gang back together again for another Thursday.
Hell
My cats are both sleeping right now, so hopefully they won't cause a ruckus in the background and distract me like they usually do.
Do your cats, when you're talking on the phone or maybe talking into a microphone, do they start whining at you as if you're talking to them? Like my cat gets confused. One of them gets confused and he just starts whining if I'm like on the phone to my parents or something like that.
My youngest cat whines. She doesn't even need an excuse to whine. She's just like, what are you talking about? Are you talking about food? What about me? The other one's chill.
Well, Binder, you don't have anything to add on the cat front?
I have a cat, but he's just a cat. He's not.
But once you have a child, I feel like cats become just cats.
Yeah.
They lose the anthropomorphic voice that they have in your head. Is that a thing that happens? I'll be very sad if that happens.
No, I do just do it in my head.
It's true that I was like, with my dogs or cats or whatever animal I had at the time, I always was like, they're more than just a pet. But when you do have kids, yes, they do become just pets. I love them, but that the idea of them being your baby, sort of, they're like a roommate in the house. So I like having them. I love them.
Matt.
But
Don't listen to that, guys. You're my babies forever, even if I ever reproduce a human.
I will say though, speaking of cats and
Matt's
children,
closing the door so his cat can't hear.
My daughter Enid, she just turned 1, and she's learned how to say no, and she does say it exactly how a cat does their howl thing. Like when they go like ah, like she goes no.
Wow.
No. It sounds
nice.
I think we've discussed this before, Matt, but your cat looks exactly like my cat.
Oh, really?
Russian
blue?
Not a Russian blue, but we thought he was. So it's possible he's part because he looks
mine's
very
part
much
too.
Like,
yeah. That's because we're sleeping
exactly like your
Putin. That's what Putin gave us when we came to America. This country of leftism.
He said, "Here's a Russian blue that people won't quite know is a Russian blue because that way they'll be undercover. They're just part." Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Careful what you say around them.
Yeah.
So guys, there's a lot of news today. And there's one story I think we should definitely get to before we jump to the members half, because it is quite the story. I mean, it takes, I have no pleasure in reporting this, but Steve Bannon might be getting the death penalty.
Yeah,
for those who haven't been watching since 2016, why don't you explain what that means, Matt?
That is the classic Louise Mensch tweet where she said that she had sources who told her that Steve Bannon was being considered for the death penalty for espionage. And of course, she was pro-life and took no pleasure in reporting that. Now, I, on the other hand, do take great pleasure in reporting this. And that is Steve Bannon has been, felony fraud, basically. He was taken in by the United States Postal Service agents, which I love. That's just
fighting back.
So much greater.
And he was on a yacht when it happened.
Right. Is it a yacht, or was it more like one of those like boats that you see someone living on in the beginning of a movie when they're down on their luck?
And houseboat.
Might have been more of a boat. I don't know.
Right. But it seems like that boat, I think that might be the boat that was purchased with the funds that he is being indicted on, I guess, in terms of the fraud charges. Him and 3 other people, one of them being the founder of the We Build That Wall project, the one where they basically raised $25 million off the backs of Trump supporters by convincing them that if Trump couldn't get the funds for his border wall through Congress, then, they'll just do the obvious thing and fund it themselves, which, that's how it works, right, guys? That's just
individualism.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yes. And do we have any clips for that? I think we have a few, actually. We definitely have one. The Trump.
It's like, what if mutual aid but bad?
Right. Oh, this is Trump being asked, because this was just breaking this morning, the morning of Thursday, August 20th, 2020. And so Trump is doing his, I guess, morning conference with the press, and he gets asked this question.
The indictment of your former campaign aide, Steve Bannon.
Well, I feel very badly. I haven't been dealing with him for a long period of time, as most of the people in this room know. He was involved in our campaign. He worked for Goldman Sachs. He worked for a lot of companies, but he was involved likewise in our campaign and for a small part of the administration very early on. I haven't been dealing with him at all. I know nothing about the project other than when I read about it, I didn't like it. I said, this is for government. This isn't for private people. And it sounded to me like showboating, and I think I let my opinion be very strongly stated at the time. I didn't like it. It was showboating and maybe looking for funds, but you'll have to see what happens. I think it's a very sad thing for Mr.
I guess
Bannon.
I think he just rambles on and repeats himself.
It's a sad thing for sloppy Steve.
It's not surprising whatsoever that someone who had connections with the Trump administration, was formerly part of the Trump administration, would be arrested for fraud. I mean, really, it's the most unsurprising thing.
That's a good, if you can get those odds in Vegas, you ride them.
Right. I mean,
if your money was on Corey Lewandowski, you would have been correct as the last one to get to not be arrested.
I want to talk about this organization a little bit and some of the other individuals involved in the Build the Wall PAC. Steve Bannon was arrested for being involved in as chairman. Advisory board includes Eric Prince, former Colorado Congressman Tom Tancredo, Sheriff Dave Clark, and former pitcher. What former pitcher? We know which former pitcher it is. Do we know?
Game developer too.
The one with the video. I can't remember.
Kurt Schilling.
Schilling, yeah.
Yeah, some testimonials they got from Louis Gohmert, Corey Lewandowski, Kim Guilfoyle, and Trump Jr. So I don't think you can get indicted for testimonials, but I will just say, Bannon is one thing. Eric Prince going down would be beautiful. So Godspeed to this investigation.
Yeah.
I want Eric Prince.
You guys will like this. Mike Cernovich was promoting this shit too.
Oh, I'm sure he was. I mean,
the funny thing though, one second, I gotta add this one really funny thing. He was trying to fight back against all the people who were tweeting at him for being part of this. And his excuse was basically, how can I be a grifter when I keep losing money? Ask my ex-wife. The one who bankrolls his entire life.
His alimony, yeah.
Yes. So go ahead, Jamie. I just had to add that before we got any further.
If you're the answer to that question is like, if you have a subsidy from like, say, someone like that, you can afford to be bad at grifting and still grift. Like that's that's how this country works. This is how a whole bunch of incompetent people with a subsidy from some, nest egg or another, they just get to waltz through life doing the thing because they have the money to continue doing it. It's not because they're good at it.
Yeah, grifting doesn't necessarily mean success. You just take money from people. There's no added necessary addendum that requires you do good for yourself with the money. Go ahead, Jamie.
Yeah, I mean, Trump himself has not done a very good job growing his inherited wealth. I think if he had just put it in a mutual fund or something, it would have grown much more than it did in all his stupid business deals. He's actually
where's the fun in that, Jamie? Where's the fun in that?
You don't get to have dinner with Mike Tyson that way.
People want to talk shit on Paris Hilton, but she's done a much better job growing her inherited wealth into some kind of little business there. And also, I think Trump is just pissed he didn't get a taste. Like, part of this is him being totally unafraid to throw people under the bus, but part of it is like...
He's like, I can't.
No, I know why he's throwing us under the bus. And it's true, actually. I looked this up. Now, he didn't come out and denounce the project when they were in the midst of raising funds back in what I think was like 2018. I couldn't find anything where he said anything about the project then.
Right.
But a few months ago, he did denounce the project, and here's why. Remember when there was that bit of information in the news, that news story that a piece of the border wall in Texas had fallen over?
Oh, yeah.
That was not actually Trump's border wall. That was whatever little piece of border wall these guys put up. So they made Trump look bad in the news, and that's why he had to come out and say,
no.
he even said when he denounced it, I think this is a bunch of people trying to make me look bad. If you look at the people who funded this thing, it's all of his biggest supporters. These guys love him. I mean, but he had to denounce them because the number one thing, the number one rule for Donald Trump is got to make me look good and or give me credit for whatever it is that's making you look good.
There's a lesson for all of us there in how, yes, the federal government should take care of these big projects. Obviously not the wall. Let's build a big highway for people to come in. But climate change, for instance, is not us banding together as individuals and maybe doing some donations to an NGO. The government made this problem by basically creating the fossil fuel industry as the demon it is today. It needs to fix it. So,
are you saying the government needs to fix immigration too, Matt?
In the sense that we need no borders and everyone can just go everywhere, right?
That's right. That's right. Do we have the video of Don Jr.?
Mm-hmm.
Hell yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah, these guys must really hate Trump, right?
And thank you guys for being here. Brian, thank you so much for all your sacrifices, doing this and showing really what capitalism's all about, right? This is private enterprise at its finest, doing it better, faster, cheaper than anything else. And what you guys are doing is pretty amazing. It started from a grassroots effort, and it's just doing some wonderful things for an important issue.
Right, that's what capitalism's all about.
Sleeping in the basement tonight.
Wow.
I just feel like his dad can make him sleep in the basement anytime he's embarrassed him.
I've never seen a group of people who hate me more than that clip right there.
You know, it is a perfect example of capitalism at work, I must say. Don Jr. is right about that. You know, you have this tiny group of elite parasites sucking the resources of regular people or, small business tyrants who own Ski-Doo dealerships or whoever donated to this thing solely for their own benefit. And yes, the project they were doing would also not have benefited the public. So it's one of those rare cases where we don't have to feel bad for anyone.
Yeah. There's one more cherry on top to close this story that I just saw. And that is that the boat that was purchased with the funds sent to this nonprofit or this PAC, whatever it is, to fund the wall, that boat took part in one of the big boater parades for Trump that he was boasting.
Oh, nice.
Of course. Hey, you got your fleet. You have to move ships around.
That's a write-off then, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
It's really it's the circle of grift. Like this whole thing was so perfectly. It was like I put a bow on it. It's like a perfect circle.
I mean, yeah. Alex Perrine had an article years ago. I mean, the past couple of years, but on how basically the party's just grifters now. That the long lucrative right wing grift is blowing up in the world's face. That's the there you go.
I think I speak for most prison abolitionists when I say the story has me feeling some very complicated feelings.
All right. Well, yeah, who knows what's going to happen with these guys? I'm sure they'll find a way out of it, so you won't have to really adjust your feelings much, I'm sure. They'll find a way to get a slap on the wrist and avoid jail time. Maybe they'll have to spend a few months in their homes with a little bracelet around their ankle at most. I mean, I'm not familiar, but it doesn't seem like that much of a that far to pull in terms of just me guessing that's going to be the.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Oh, yeah, hopefully.
The carceral state is not designed to go after the ruling class, folks. It's only designed to go after the proletariat. That's why we can't be strengthening it and funding it, because they're not putting Steve Bannon in jail.
I also want to say I just hope that. Oh crap! I'm still up, right?
Yeah, I see you.
Okay. Sorry, now I lost my place. Go on. Let's go to the fun half. I forgot my point.
It's all good. Let me tell you how many times that happened to me when I was in your shoes, Matt.
It's a weird. when you can't see if like Zoom disappears all of a sudden, you feel like I thought it might have, and you feel like you're talking to yourself for a while. Anyway.
Oh, I didn't even need Zoom. I'm talking about when I was in the room with Michael and Sam and dealing with some sort of tech issue, and then it was thrown to me for my opinion, and I was just like, "Wait, what are we talking about again? What happened?" All right, let's do it. Let's go to the second half. A lot more to talk about. A lot of fun to be had. We're on the final day of this wonderful, not at all weird remote DNC. So we'll talk about it all. Join us in the fun half. Who wants to plug their stuff first? I usually go first, so I don't want to go first again. So someone else.
I will plug my stuff. So this week on the Antifada, we have the OG Antifada crew of me and Sean talking about two very topical topics, namely the USPS and fascism. So first of all, we'd give a little history of the USPS, how it was created by a giant wildcat strike in 1970 on the part of postal workers, and how both Democrats and Republicans have been attacking it basically ever since in a bipartisan fashion, and how the Democrats shot themselves in the ass on this. Also, we talk about Ice Bay. I don't know if you guys remember her. She's got an OnlyFans now, which has actually been approved by ICE. So everyone who's horny for fascism can check out them titties online.
I mean, that's why we allow this type of media, right? Like OnlyFans, like, of course, the people porn, but for some sort of propagandistic purposes like this, of course.
Yeah. Why do you think ICE approved it? They'd much rather have people thinking about them titties than, what ICE is actually doing.
They're trying to hire more ICE bays.
Pretty much. I think you have to submit a picture now with your application. That leads us into a discussion on fascism. What is a fascism? Is Trump a fascism? Is America? We talk about various thinkers' attempts to define the big F. And check it out. I feel like I did a bad job describing it just now, but I'm real proud of this one. Also, I will be moderating a teach-in on anti-work politics and the welfare rights movement and how they relate to our current moment. This is a venture of my DSA caucus, Emerge, and it's going to be on Sunday at 5:00 p.m. and featuring sociologist and writer Wilson Sherwin, who is a former guest of the Antifada as well. So I put a link to that in the blog post. I encourage everyone to check it out.
Sunday's my birthday.
Oh,
I just felt like adding that.
I just gave you the perfect way to celebrate.
There we go. Yeah, I'm going to spend, sorry, kids.
Yeah.
Spending my birthday watching that. No, but I'm sure it'll be great.
Kids are
if I didn't have kids, I'd be, I'm sure they can't even sit down for pre-K via Zoom. So I doubt they'll be able to.
They understand it very intuitively before it's beaten out of them by capitalist society.
Right. It's like swimming.
Go ahead, Matt.
TMBS on Tuesday night, we had Dustin Gostella of the Teamsters to talk about the USPS and the fight to save public goods in this country, and the left's failure to come to the aid of striking TVA workers recently. That's the Tennessee Valley Authority, one of the biggest public utility in the country, one of the shining inheritances from the New Deal. And because the left wasn't there, a America Firster was able. Basically, they were trying to outsource their IT department, and some America First people came in and said, "We're going to defend these workers," and Trump got his victory. And we talk about the failure of the left to have been there for those workers and what we need to do going forward. So check that out, patreon.com/TMBS. And Literary Hangover, I know I promised to stream on last weekend. I will do one on tomorrow night. So look forward to that. Twitch.tv/Literary Hangover.
Brendan, come on. I know you could think of something. Go ahead. Just promote a social media account, something, buddy.
Why we got to be in promotion all the time? We got to be more collective. I promote all your shows. I second all of them.
Oh, okay.
Thanks,
fine.
Brendan.
That was very nice. But
I'll take it.
I will promote my show. So Ladies and gentlemen, you can. Well, I'm going to actually promote 2 shows. Last week, I had an interview with the president of Media Matters on QAnon, and I'm bringing that up because QAnon is probably more so in the news now than ever before. And we spoke for over an hour about, and people have told me this, they say they've watched a lot of QAnon type content that covered it, and that this conversation went places that they haven't heard before, because we didn't just focus on the conspiracy theory, we focused on what it's going to evolve into, what's to come, and basically how it's already changed. It's really a good discussion. Doomedpod.com for the audio version, or youtube.com/Matt Binder to catch the video replay. But then tonight, if you want some live stuff, I will be live streaming tonight right after the DNC. I'm going to give or take based on how the other nights ended, around 11:15 p.m. with Nomiki of the Nomiki Show. She'll be breaking down the week that was the DNC. She's been covering it, every single day, so nobody knows what's going on at this convention better than her. So youtube.com/Matt Binder for that. And if you want to support the show, you can, and whatever I do, you go to patreon.com/Matt Binder. And with that, I think we'll be going to the members fun half part of the show.
You are in for it.
All right, folks, 646-257-3920. See you in the fun half.
Are you ready?
Who sent us this?
Anarchy. Alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just as delicious as you could imagine.
The alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just wanna degrade the white man.
Alpha males are back.
I take all of it in my throat.
Alpha males are back.
Almost says what?
The alpha males are back.
You are a madman.
And the alpha males are back.
I am a total cunt.
Can we bring back DJ Dannerky's song, please?
Yeah, or a couple of them, just put them in rotation.
DJ Danner.
Well, the problem with those is they're like 45 seconds long, so I don't know if they're enough of a break for people.
That's fucking nonsense.
Hey, folks, reminder.
I do not have Parkinson's.
And the alpha males are...
Psych. Fuck 'em. Almost says what? Almost says what?
A hell of a lot of bang. A hell of a lot of bang. A hell of a lot of bang. Hell of a lot of bang. A hell of a lot of bang.
All lives matter. Have you tried doing an impression on a college campus?
I think that there's no reason why reasonable people across the divide can't all agree with this. Psych.
And the alpha males are back. And the Africans are black. African. And the alpha males are back. And the Africans are black.
When you see Donald Trump out there, doesn't a little part of you think that America deserves to be taken over by jihadists? Keep it at 100. Can't knock the hustle. Come on! Fuck 'em. Things I do for the bigger game plan. By the way, it's my birthday! Happy birthday to me, Jew boy!
I have a thought experiment for you.
And the alpha males are back. Africans are black. Alpha males are back. Africans are black.
Come on! Come on! Someone needs to pay the price for blasphemy around here.
I am a total pussy.
That's right. Happy birthday to me. Sunday is my birthday, ladies and gentlemen. Woo! Yeah.
Happy birthday, Matt. I see that like my birthday, your birthday lasts longer than just one day.
Right. Yeah. I will celebrate my birthday for as long as humanly possible. I need to get every single benefit of it being your birthday out of it. So I will take it. I got to go to multiple parents and parents-in-laws and siblings, and so I'll milk it for all it's worth.
Well,
So,
I hope your birthday is better than mine was, because my party was canceled by COVID. Womp womp.
Cancel culture strikes again. Binder, are you a Leo then?
I don't know what I am. August 23rd. I never knew. I don't really pay attention to that.
It's your birthday.
I do know all the best people in the world are born in August. Myself, Michael Brooks, Matthew Film Guy just celebrated a birthday the other day. This means nothing to this show, but both the singer and guitarist of my band were back in the day were born in August. In fact, they were born the same day. And the same day as Michael. So really, August 13th for a long time was like, wow, all my friends are born on August 13th. What the hell is going on here? But let's do this. I mean, let's crack open a cold one. And
what do you rock?
I ran to the local 7-Eleven and grabbed a Rockstar energy drink.
Oh my God.
Because today's going to be a long day for me, because I'm going to be doing this and then got to go take care of the kids, and then got to watch the DNC and then do a late night stream. That's probably going to take me into like the AM hours. So I'm ready to do this.
Sam is not going to be happy that you are promoting a brand on this show that has not given him any money.
Oh, I was, doing that for many, many years just by drinking nonstop Pepsi and Monster and whatever other energy drinks. But I'm sorry, Sam.
Fair enough. So what should we start with, guys? Trump said some pretty amusing things in the past few days. What's new?
Yeah.
I think we should do the Goodyear stuff combined with Kudlow's reaction, which I think is very funny.
I was hoping that's what you were going to say, because I enjoyed this clip very much. So President Trump recently said that people should boycott the company Goodyear because he saw photos somebody tweeted apparently indicating that Goodyear had banned all MAGA attire from their workplace. Now, you could say this is an example of him being a hypocrite about cancel culture, but nobody cares that he's a hypocrite. Let's just play the clip.
Yeah.
Mr. President, I want to ask you about your tweet earlier today on Goodyear. It was essentially calling for a boycott on Goodyear tires. Do you want the federal government to stop buying and using Goodyear product as well? And is there anything?
I'm not happy with Goodyear because what they're doing is playing politics. And the funny thing is the people that work for Goodyear, I can guarantee you, I poll very well with all of those great workers in Goodyear. And when they say that you can't have Blue Lives Matter, you can't show a blue line, you can't wear a MAGA hat, but you can have other things that are Marxist in nature. There's something wrong with the top of Goodyear. And what the...
Do I get a pause? Thank you. I've been wanting to say that for so long. Yeah, so I should explain that apparently Black Lives Matter attire is not banned from the workplace. So that's what he's referring to when he talks about Marx.
I saw a Goodyear thing.
Yeah, I'll show you. Here's the image of what was reported that I'm pretty sure Goodyear is denying is actually a real thing.
So it's a zero tolerance. On the acceptable side, it says
acceptable zero tolerance, by the way.
Yeah, I don't know what that means. Like the acceptable zero tolerance, but anyway, acceptable is Black Lives Matter, BLM, and lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender pride. I don't know specifically. I mean, I assume you're saying Marxist is the Black Lives Matter one, or people still saying LGBT is a Marxist plot too. I don't know. That's insane.
All Marxist plots.
Why are you talking about Marx?
I saw a Goodyear employee wearing a yarmulke. No need for this Marxist
like.
And I like that political affiliated slogans or material are in the unacceptable column, as if, those acceptable things are not political. I don't know. Seems legit to me. Seems like something I would totally see on Facebook if I was, like a boomer and think, wow, this culture is really going to shit.
I mean, I personally don't care that there's a double standard. I think it's good that you can employees are allowed to do oh, you're scaring scream, Brendan. That employees are allowed to wear BLM or LGBT stuff and not do Blue Lives Matter or MAGA. I think it's appropriate to do the first two and not the latter two. I don't think it's because they're political or not. I think it's because some are good and some are bad. I think Blue Lives Matter is bad. I mean, and if a company decides they don't want their employees to be flashing Blue Lives Matter flags, which I understand why they wouldn't want them to be doing that, then they should be allowed to do that. But
yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing. They view BLM and the LGBT community as something that's just inherently political. When, I mean, frankly,
Marxist.
It's not if you are actually like not insane, like if you're not a crazy right winger, like everyone should be on board where Black people shouldn't be getting murdered by the police all across this country. Everyone should be on board that the LGBT community should have equal rights to everyone else in this country. I mean, that shouldn't be a political statement in the same way that MAGA is, which literally is the president's catchphrase for his campaign. And Blue Lives Matter is, again, literally a right-wing answer to Black Lives Matter, because Blue Lives Matter would not exist if Black Lives Matter didn't exist. It was a response to the Black Lives Matter movement.
Yeah.
That said, if you really believe that Black Lives Matter, if you really believe that LGBT lives matter, it does tend to point you in the direction of Marxism. Inconvenient truth. Because economic oppression is tied to all the other kinds of oppression. But there's more in this clip. He talks about the jobs. You know that Trump is really big on jobs, right? That's like his signature issue. He's bringing the jobs back. So he addresses the jobs aspect of this little kerfuffle as well.
Have Blue Lives Matter. You can't show a blue line. You can't wear a MAGA hat. But you can have other things that are Marxist in nature. There's something wrong with the top of Goodyear. And what the radical left does is they make it impossible for people to do business if they're Republican or if they're conservative. They put out all sorts of effort. Don't shop there. They do vicious things, not so different than what you saw on the streets of Portland 2 nights ago.
Boycott, do you envision?
I don't know. That's up to people, but I wouldn't recommend it. If they want to hold political speech, if they want to let you not do what everybody's doing, if they want to wear a MAGA hat, or if they want to wear a Blue Lives, what Blue Lives Matter, right? That's policemen and women. That's a terrible thing. That's a terrible thing. So they're using their power over these people, and these people want to wear whatever it is that we're talking about. You know that. And so I would be very much in favor if people don't want to buy there. And you know what? They'll be able to get a good job, because we set a jobs record over the last quarter, as you know, the most jobs ever in the history of our country. You'll be able to get another good jobs. I think it's disgraceful that they did this. Please, go ahead.
For the record, Goodyear denies that this is in any sort of their training. And they go on to say that they, foster inclusive, respectful workplace with, culture for both police and protests or whatever.
Yeah, that kind of illustrates the issue with dealing with the stuff through corporate diversity seminars, right? Yep. Like, because those things are they're just designed to cover the asses of the companies and make the employees feel a tiny bit better so they don't sue. Like it's not actually intended to solve the problems here. It's interesting that that's the focal point of this sort of thing.
No.
Yeah. And MLB can do, BLM, reverse the logo, and also continue to do honoring their local cops during the 7th inning. Like they do. They can have it both ways.
Right. BLM
has
is
the
actually...
MLB done that? Has the MLB done that? That's genius, Brendan.
They did. They actually did do that. Yeah.
That's because, there's a lot of criticism of how actually apolitical BLM has gotten. Now that it can be hidden in the background of an Elizabeth Warren speech, what does it really mean now? And Trump's calling it Marxist. Like, Jesus.
It still means something, I would say. Just
it
because
does.
brands are trying to co-opt it does it mean that,
it's not just the brands though. It's like
politics is a liberatory thing that we should be pursuing, right?
100%. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying and actually I think people have criticism of the organization Black Lives Matter as distinct from the movement Black Lives Matter. And I'm saying more like the organizational sides of things. I think it's mainly been co-opted by the Democrats.
Yeah. Well, that just speaks to the need for a real grassroots militant leftist organization, perhaps a party or party-like structure that can intensify these movements, keep them going for the long haul, and create a kind of organized chaos that eventually could lead to, I don't want to get out over my skis here, but revolution. That is the goal in my mind, and that should always be the goal. But yeah, it is funny when a brand tries to be woke or whatever in a way that's already embarrassing and not helpful and certainly not Marxist. And then the right takes it as a sign that the radical left has infiltrated our society. It's like, dude, can they both lose?
Yeah, and I'll just say a shorter term goal would, if I'd like to see Duray be influenced by Marxism more.
Oh man, Marxist Duray.
Need to slap Marxism on a product for that to happen.
Oh, where's Michael when you need him to do an impression of Marxist D-Ray?
We need Patagonia to release Black Jacobins reprints.
Seriously. Black Jacobins reading group sponsored by Goodyear.
All I know is that Trump very clearly cares about this issue very much, because I know when I talk about something that really bothers me, I usually refer to it as, whatever it is they want to do, whatever they want to wear, whatever it is that we're having a problem over, they should be allowed to do it. That's what I know. I mean,
grumpy dead energy there.
Not to muse too much on this, but it is kind of sad that the political struggle here is expressing yourself at work, at the workplace.
Yeah. Just to be clear, this is not what these protests were about, right?
That's what these things always
it's about
into.
Aesthetic expression and has nothing to do with, the material consequences of killing people and locking people in cages.
Yeah, but
I guess these things always devolve into, the idea that the president of Goya spoke out for Trump, and the liberals said that they were going to stop buying Goya. So in response, the right said they're going to buy a ton of Goya beans and other Goya products. And then you have this happen. And then I've literally seen there was a video posted of someone who works at a mechanic taking down all their Goodyear signs. And then I saw who clearly was a right winger. And then I saw liberals saying how they're going to go out and buy a bunch of Goodyear tires. I mean, it's just what it comes. It's all about.
We live in hell.
It's being empowered as a consumer. That's the only way you can be empowered in this country.
That's the only way you can exercise political will, basically. Yeah. With the gridlock that exists in Washington, not state level.
We haven't got to the best part of this yet, in my opinion, which is Kudlow's reaction. So let's hurry to that.
Let's do it. Let's chalk it up there, Matt. Why don't you get it all ready for everybody?
Oh, I think we can just keep rolling into this.
Okay. Let's do it,
Brendan.
Oh. Yeah, hold on one second.
Okay, I mean, basically, Kudlow, very on the ball, economic advisor for Donald Trump. He's had to take some breaks. He's had some health issues, and he's had some, substance abuse issues that are reported in the press. Hopefully, he's doing a little bit better now, but he's not briefed any better. And here, this Goodyear thing kind of catches him off guard. I'm not sure who this is with, but let's watch it.
Another huge story today, Larry, that I got to ask you about is the president calling for a boycott of Goodyear tire, which is confusing for a number of reasons. One, it's an Ohio company based in Akron, employs more than 60,000 people. And number two, you guys have been campaigning against the Democrats and their cancel culture for canceling things like Goya brands. Why on earth would you do this?
What did he say about Goodyear? I mean, I don't know. Don't know this. Maybe I should. It's hard to know everything.
He called for a boycott of Goodyear tires because he didn't like something that was in, their HR diversity policies as far as not showing political speech. And then there was a picture circulating about banning MAGA hats. And so the president didn't like that. But just in general, calling for a boycott against an American company like that seems like an odd tactic for this administration.
In general, we're certainly Buy America.
Okay.
And that's been our policy for quite some time. And I'd have to ask the president what he was referring to on the Goodyear matter. To be honest with you, I hadn't seen it, Sarah. I will try to ask him this afternoon and answer your question some other time. But yes, we are usually Buy America. And I think that's a good policy, especially in these days. But look, president's in favor of reciprocal trade deals. He's in favor of fair trade deals. And we've had...
I mean, what else can you really do?
I saw someone mention how apparently out of like the 4 major tire companies in this that sell in this country, the only one that's a U.S. company is Goodyear. So they really really went after the exact one, like the one to go after, apparently.
Yeah, well, those workers can get other jobs. Didn't you hear him? The economy's doing great.
Yeah, we added the most jobs.
10% unemployment. Never been better, folks. What is unemployment now? Is it 10%?
I don't know.
It's high. It's very high. It's.
I feel like it's gone up since Brendan put the sound sheet together.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know.
The idea that you would go on national television though and get asked a question like that, and just not even just have even if you're not familiar with what is said, just have a general response to basically make yourself sound good at the very least.
I gotta say, to Kudlow's credit, like what your point about that being the one made in America, Kudlow actually had the right response. Like, usually we wouldn't want to be doing this because Goodyear is actually based in America. So I have to ask the president what he means by that.
That's a pretty good Kudlow impression.
Yeah, and he just needs some booze. I mean, allegedly.
You think someday he's going to get sober and apologize to the country?
No, I don't think he has. I don't think he's going to have enough time, Jamie. If you look at him,
he's a little older.
Oh,
he doesn't have enough time. He's going to run out before he ever gets to that point. That's my guess.
These ghouls live a long damn time, and it seems he may have pickled his insides. So we'll see. Maybe the rev will get him before the booze does. Who knows?
You guys want to go to the phones?
Sure.
I would love to.
All right. Hopefully this works. It should be set up correctly. Let's do it. 847. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, it's Josh from Chicago.
Hey, Josh from Chicago. Does everyone on Zoom?
Yes.
Jamie, Matt, Brett, you hear it?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Go ahead, Josh. In Chicago.
Well, first, thanks for doing these like Thursday shows with the interviews, because a lot of these interviews were actually before my time listening to Majority Report. So I get to like catch up and stuff like that. And it's really cool. So thanks.
Right. Not to be biased or anything, but I would check out anything pre-October 2015. I would say that's the glory days of the Majority Report.
Is there a reason why that? Or
because that's I was on the show until then.
Oh, yeah. Of course, not to be biased at all. But I wanted to talk about, I guess, something that I've had that sort of occurred to me in a sort of confrontation I got with sort of a centrist friend of mine. How do you guys, and maybe you all can talk about this in your own specific ways, how have you all handled talking about defunding the police with your sort of more centrist or even more conservative friend? Because basically my friend wrote this sort of puff piece about how defunding the police was pushing these quote unquote good police chiefs out. And when I got into him sort of with like I know. And like,
I too was really worried about the good police chiefs. All 0.0001% of them. Yeah.
It's like when I got into it with him, like if I just didn't say defunding the police, but if I said we should put more resources into social services and stuff like that, he seemed to be okay with it. But as soon as you use the words defunding or taking away like $3 billion, people freak out and they think it's like crime is going to rise, which of course we know, given when didn't the police go on strike here in New York for like a weekend and crime went down?
Yes, that's true. But then also they bring up how now crime is going up a bit in New York because the police have taken their hands off of certain matters. That is obviously not 100% accurate, being that there's a lot more things going on than usual. For example, mass unemployment due to a ongoing pandemic. I mean, they really don't account for to be quite frank, the idea that society is still going on pretty much almost completely as normal during this unprecedented time period in modern history is just, to me, shocking enough as its own. I mean, I would actually expect the world to completely change over like that, and we're not seeing that. So to me, that's the real surprise, not the fact that there's been a few more shootings and a few more robberies than normal. I mean, that to me is not, we should be saying, holy crap, the fact that's all that's happened is miraculous.
Yeah. And the NYPD has not been defunded, by the way.
No. Was it 324 million, which is like pennies?
And a lot of it was moved around, basically.
It was just reallocated.
What they did in this city is they just no longer considered the school police officers to be allocated under the NYPD budget.
And de Blasio had a report last week when he said that 22,000 city workers were going to have to be laid off, and none of those would be police. So
there are not any fewer cops on the streets because of this.
Right, they're getting rid of EMTs. Their EMTs are being cut. Education budgets are being cut. Every corner is being cut, literally, except the NYPD.
But this isn't necessarily about what's going on in New York. He's talking about generally how you talk to a centrist. And I think like things you actually do is emphasize, one, that we under-investigate and over-police. So that basic thing needs to be changed. But also, like at a certain point, if he thinks that the cops need to have these massive investments of like Department of Defense equipment and spy equipment and I don't think everybody agrees with that. I don't think that's a very popular position, actually. So I think you focus on these budgets are just ridiculously bloated in this country. I mean, this is more complicated in other countries where they haven't even had enough money to bloat their police budgets. But in this country, that's where we just put excess taxpayer cash, and that's a huge piñata we can hit. And I mean, Austin did pass a pretty substantial cut to their police budgets. There'll be real world data towards some of this stuff. I mean, not the full measures, but partial measures that we'll be able to point to. But I think that's kind of a fear response. And I don't know that I don't know if
Josh,
rationalize it away.
Well, it depends
Josh,
on
your
friend too.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Josh, is your friend, you're talking about a Trump supporter, or are you talking about someone?
He's like a middle of the road Biden supporter. He probably voted for Biden in the primary.
All right, so here's a good way.
He lives in Dallas too.
So here's a good way. I think this is probably someone that this would work for. They probably don't demonize the mentally ill. So you could basically say, I find this works. I've seen this come up in conversation. Why is the NYPD because a lot of these calls for the NYPD are to deal with people with mental health issues.
Yes.
So why are untrained cops being sent to deal with these mental health issues? A, you're putting the mentally ill in danger, and B, you're also putting the police officers in danger. Now, I know that's not a conversation really where the people on the left would really put as number one, but for someone in the center who's worried about the cops and another group that has most people have empathy for, I think that's a great way to bring it up. There should be budget taken from the NYPD allocated to mental health professionals who get sent to deal with these calls. Again, big percentage of these calls are to deal with the mentally ill, and that's where you get the cuts from the NYPD, and that's how I think you could start that conversation with them and possibly win them over.
Yeah, I've heard of a number of incidents actually where the cops were called because somebody was threatening to kill themselves, and then the cops ended up killing that person.
I mean, yeah, I know people who've had siblings where it's a mental health episode and with like an alcohol involved, and the cops come and drag him down a bunch of stairs, hitting his head the entire way. Like, I think that is a very smart thing, like Binder. I think that's because people can relate to that too. People have everybody knows somebody who like has issues like that, and you don't want a cop coming to with a gun with his hand on his holster being the one to respond to that.
Yeah.
There was literally just a case right here in Queens, about literally like 5 to 10 minutes away from me, where cops were called because there was a dispute with an upstairs neighbor and a downstairs neighbor. The downstairs neighbor was a person with mental health issues, and they were playing with a sword. And the cop showed up, and this person was in their house too, so it wasn't like they were roaming the streets with a sword. Cops show up, see the person in their house with the sword. They even get told by the upstairs neighbor that we know that we're calling the cops, but we know that they have mental health issues, so please wait for his mom and proceed with caution, because his mom was out. They get him to actually put the sword down. He comes out and just gets upset because they're arresting him in his own house. And they tase him 7 times. He was completely unarmed. He died. He literally died right there from getting tased 7 times.
God.
It's ridiculous. It shouldn't have happened in any way, shape, or form. They shouldn't have been sent there. They shouldn't have treated him the way they did. They were unexperienced and untrained to deal with that issue, and it resulted in someone losing their life. And for someone like your friend, one of the cops could have lost their lives too. So there we go.
Yeah, it's funny because like when I talked with him about like just like putting more funding in, he's for putting more funding, but like when you bring up defunding the police, it's weird because that's how you would put the more funds into social services, is by funding the police.
What does he think about the drug war?
To be fair, we're going to need to make up the difference, because part of why we have a giant carceral state to begin with is because it's much, much cheaper, even a bloated carceral state, than properly funding all of these social programs that would fight the root causes of crime and inequality.
What does your friend think of the drug war, though? Because that's, I mean, a huge, even centrist should be against that at this point.
That's something that goes either way, so it's interesting. Yeah.
I think he's for like marijuana. He doesn't think people should be arrested for marijuana. His thing is like, he thinks if you defund the police, there'll be violent criminals on the street, essentially. I think as far as the drug war, it's a nonviolent. It's a lot of these people are being locked up for nonviolent crimes. I don't think he's a big fan of that. But again, it's like, how you stop the drug war is also by defunding the police.
I mean, the police aren't really stopping crime before it happens. Well, they do that illegally sometimes, yes. But I'm talking about
police
like sort of. I'm talking about like these violent issues that your friend's probably talking about. It's not like someone's roaming the streets saying, "Man, if only the cops weren't here, I would commit some violent crimes." No, that's not that's not what it happens. That's not what happens at all.
They almost never stop a violent crime in progress. That's extremely rare. That is not what the cops do. And if you want some statistics on that, the Alex Vitale book, The End of Policing, he was on Majority Report recently, is full of really good data. That's what I like about it, right? Because, libs love data. It's full of data on all of the ways in which the cops do not actually produce public safety. And the only way to increase safety is to decrease the police's contact with the public. This can be done by decriminalizing things like drug offenses. It can be done by decriminalizing sex work. It can be done by reducing the number of cops and shrinking their role in society and crowding them out with all of these other social services that take care of people in better, less violent ways. But like, if you want to deal with violent,
I was going to say that's what Jamie's famous for, loving that data. That's why we call her Jamie 538 Peck. Right?
That's me. Go to Jamie 3030. I'm just hacking. I'm hacking some data all day long. Just hacking a course through the data forest with my data.
Jamie Silver.
Yeah, that's me. Oh my God. That's funny. But yeah, like the data calls for abolition. I'm sorry. It just does. I don't know how to approach your friend. You probably know better than I do. But we really need to challenge the idea that the police serve the purpose of keeping us safe, because they don't. The police serve the purpose of keeping surplus populations, which is an incredibly racialized population in this country, beaten down and oppressed so that they don't cause trouble. They exist to protect private property. And if they ever do anything good, and I'm not saying no cop has ever done anything good, but that is not that is purely incidental to the actual purpose that these institutions serve.
Yeah, I think the data thing is actually a good idea because the way he thinks, he's very, I don't know, he looks at a lot. He's very analytical about like data and stuff like that. So that's probably a good tactic. But all these are really good suggestions, and I appreciate your input and thoughts on this.
Thanks, Josh.
Thanks, Josh.
Cheers.
All right, let's go to another call because that was a great call. So maybe we'll get another great call. Maybe that's how it works. You got to keep them going in a row. Get a streak going on. 516, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
This is me.
Dan, what's up? Wait, is this Dan?
Yeah. I was going to go by a different name, but I guess you guys saved me.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, it popped up.
It's cool. It's cool. No worries. Totally fine. Yeah, Dan from New York. How's it going, guys?
Dan from New York.
Yeah, I'm from Big Bad Long Island.
Maybe I could probably throw a rock and hit you.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, well, don't hit me. Hit one of the other people that live here because there's a lot of it sucks.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to say a couple of things, and then I'll just kind of leave them on the table for you guys. First off, miss Michael, miss the hell out of him, man. Like, I mean, if it wasn't for him, I never ever would have watched unless I just happened across the documentary, The Edge of Democracy, which really, really, like any of the other listeners, like you guys really should check it out. It really gives a great window into that whole that whole political atmosphere down there. It's really some crazy stuff, and the documentary, is really well done. Second off, I wanted to talk about the just this pervasiveness of the whole QAnon thing, and how, like, I hear people from every corner of the political spectrum, like, reference these QAnon things, and like people who, don't like Trump, people who like Trump, people who couldn't care less about any of these politics. Like I've heard people everywhere talk about this QAnon thing, and like, it scares me because like they're like the whole thing with like, Bill Clinton and all these, like, we know that these rich, powerful people are all connected, and we know that many of them have these sick fucking perversions that they engage in. And like, I'm afraid of like the validation of one of these things turning into, like, if one of these things gets validated, like, say, really close to the election, and it just completely turns, like, that's my biggest fear right now, is the conspiracy thing completely taking over all ends of the political spectrum as the election gets closer. And I kind of just want to, because it scares me, honestly. Like, it's not, that scares me more than probably anything, honestly. And maybe it shouldn't, but I kind of wanted you guys' thoughts on just how it kind of pervades all ideology, kind of like, it's really weird. Like, I don't know. But anyway, and the third thing I wanted to just drop on the table for you guys, because I know you guys are, well, at least two of you are punk rockers. So anybody who's into some good, if you haven't listened to them already, you guys probably have, but if you haven't checked out Propaganda,
of course, yeah.
Canadian punk band. You want some real good anarchist, communist lyrics? Go check them out. They got some real good stuff. I don't want to get you defunded.
Absolutely.
But thanks, guys. I appreciate everything you guys do, and I love listening to your show. I'm listening every day, so thank you.
Appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you.
All right. So, what do you want? Who wants to? Anyone want to address that first?
With regard, there's one reason I think for all the QAnon stuff is that there is these conspiracy theories or conspiracies where powerful people are getting away with stuff, And I think people are doing what Alex Jones would accuse David Icke of doing, of putting a turd in the punch bowl, and to try to basically poison the well so that people discredit all this stuff. I don't know that, like, what would happen that would validate QAnon, like something with Ghislaine, like this stuff. It seems to be increasingly more and more validated, right? You see the picture of Kevin Spacey and Ghislaine in the throne room at Buckingham Palace.
Yikes.
Right. Like it's disgusting, but I don't know, like, how it would cohere in a way that, like, would take over politics. I don't know the theory of that. I guess I'm not sure what you guys think about that.
When it comes to QAnon, I think, you just brought up let's go off your example of, like, the things that are out there that actually sort of validate some of their beliefs and claims. But the weird thing about QAnon is they aren't even, like, laser focused on that stuff. Like, you'd think,
Right.
if you had a conspiracy theory and something came out that in any way, shape, or form, like gave it some sort of backbone, you would be obsessed with pointing it out and always holding it up as proof. But they see a picture of Kevin Spacey with, Bill Clinton on a trip where they went with on Epstein's plane, and then you somehow get them talking about, Tom Hanks and Chrissy Teigen are also pedophiles. Like, why would you do that if you have something? Like, why wouldn't you be laser focused on constantly talking about Kevin Spacey? I can tell you, the Q people really don't talk about Spacey that much, which is, you'd be shocked if you think that would be something they would be, they'd be targeting on. I mean, they bring it up and they use them as part of their whole thing, but it's not really a major focus. I think what's going to happen with QAnon is, I think if Trump loses, they'll be around, probably stronger and crazier and more injected into everyday life as ever before. But I could see them sort of shifting. Like, I could see the pivot. Sort of like, I think an example is how Gamergate started as literally just a harassment campaign against one developer. Didn't even have the name Gamergate. It had a name that specifically targeted their ridiculous allegations, which was really just shaming a poor woman. And then a right-winger got a hold of it, Adam Baldwin, the actor, not related to the Baldwin brothers. And he just came out and said, we're going to call this Gamergate. And that's when it shifted to how it's about ethics in gaming journalism. QAnon will probably end up having that shift. It'll probably still maintain a lot of these, right-wing conspiracies, but the idea that it's all surrounded around Q and be called QAnon for that reason, Q is already not much of a big factor in it. I could see that quickly going away and them coming up with a more universal name that sort of encapsulates a new right-wing movement.
But it's sort of like the Republican Party. It's just going to become the Republican Party someday soon, I think.
It's weird because it's also like a religious community more than, or cult community more than a political movement. I mean, it is putting people in Congress. But yeah, I don't know, like, for this election upcoming now, I feel like, I don't know, maybe Trump's, we could play the clips of Trump talking about it, but maybe that excites people in swing states that can marginally push it over. I mean, that would be bad if there's enough Q nuts out there that just want his validation. But I mean, I imagine a lot of those people would vote for Trump anyway.
Right.
I would not be surprised if Trump believed in it on some level, because it makes him look good, right?
The problem is, though, he gets all his stuff from TV, I think, and I don't think
he's not deep enough in the bowels of the internet.
Yeah.
No, but here's something
with a computer.
Here's something though that I think, I don't agree with that. I think it's a smart move for him, which is against every pundit I saw say something on TV last night. I saw Brian Williams talking about QAnon and trying to explain it, and he asked Claire McCaskill what she thought of it. I mean, no experts whatsoever on these sort of conspiracies or right-wing fringe movements or reactionary groups. Nothing. Just that was the discussion. But they said, oh, why would he do that? It's politically toxic for him. He shouldn't. maybe when QAnon first started and it was all just Trump supporters, but over the past few months, there's been a diverse, and when I say diverse, I mean age demographics, belief and political ideological demographics. I don't know so sure about race or anything like that, but in terms of what the ideology of these people are, it's changed. The coronavirus has really given QAnon that new life that I don't know if it really needed it, but it sure helped blow it up bigger than it ever was before. Coronavirus has changed with the makeup of QAnon. QAnon is not a bunch of boomer supporting Trump supporters. If you go into some of these conspiratorial Facebook QAnon groups, or you look on just the different chats and image boards, you can find 20, 30-year-old health nuts, Instagram influencers, the anti-vaxxer community, moms who are really worried about children being sexually trafficked. They are all feeding into the various different tentacles that is QAnon. And if you are the one candidate out there saying, I hear you, and that stuff's terrible, and I'm going to do what I can to help, and you really believe in this stuff, and maybe you're not too political, and you think you just what you know about Trump is what you hear on from people or whatever, you might say, wow, why is Trump talking about this but not Biden? I want Trump to fight these people. I want Trump to save the children. I want Trump to make sure I don't have to vaccinate my children so they get ADD or whatever the crazy vaxxers believe nowadays. It's not politically toxic anymore. If I was a strategist for Trump, I would say, I don't know if it's a sure win, but what have you got to lose when you're looking at the polls and you're not doing too hot? I don't see how this hurts Trump. I can only see how this helps him. How much it helps him is a question that who knows. I guess that's the question of just how big can QAnon possibly get before the election.
Yeah, anyone who thinks that this is going to hurt Trump by making him look crazy or whatever has not been paying attention for the past 4 years. I would also add more generally on the topic of conspiracy theories. I hate to be all like, capitalism is the problem with everything. Everything's capitalism's fault. But Anna Merlin has done some really good reporting on this. When people feel disempowered, when they feel disenfranchised, and when they feel isolated from other people, that is when they are more likely to believe conspiracy theories. And there's not a direct one-to-one correspondence with poverty, although sometimes there is. If you're looking at conspiracy theories believed by people in poor communities, there's certainly a correlation there between the shit that's being done to oppress them and the stories they come up with to explain it. It's more diffuse than that at this point in time, because we have people who are literal capitalists, small business owners, Trump's base, believing these things. People can be lonely. People can be atomized. People are isolated in this society, whether they're rich or poor, when all of your human relationships have been totally subsumed by the market. And it makes sense that it would be accelerating right now during COVID because people are even more isolated than they were before.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. That's you hit the nail on the head. Maybe we should play this clip actually, so people can get a gist of exactly what Trump is out there saying. Because this is the first time Trump has tipped his hat to the QAnon people. The QAnon movement has been begging for this moment. They've been waiting for this. They've been waiting for someone to ask Trump the Q question, because it would automatically basically add, like I said before,
unless you ask it correctly. The problem is the way this is asked is in such an irresponsible way that they think that it's like asking Superman, so do you stand for the truth, justice, and the American way like QAnon says you do? What? Anyway, sorry to butt in, but it really bugs. This is malpractice by the journalists.
No, that's a perfect point. And speaking of Brian Williams before, that last night wasn't the first time I heard him talk about QAnon. The day before, it was mentioned just in passing by him. And he says to his audience, and if you want to really understand what that's all about, I encourage you to go look it up. No, do not do that. Don't tell people to go look up QAnon, because they might fall onto something that says literally there is a satanic child trafficking pedophile ring that's being run by the global elite, Hollywood liberals, and Democratic Party that Trump alone is taking down. And they might say, oh, that's what that is? How swell. I like Trump now. Like, what are you doing? Don't do that. Stop. You got to tell people what QAnon is so you can inform them straight up before they fall into some rabbit hole, why it is bad, why it is not what's happening, why it is completely fake, nonsensical bullshit. Let's get to this clip.
During the pandemic, the QAnon movement appears to be gaining a lot of followers. Can you talk about what you think about that and what you have to say to people who are following this movement right now?
Well, I don't know much about the movement other than I understand they like me very much, which I appreciate. But I don't know much about the movement. I have heard that it is gaining in popularity, and from what I've heard, these are people that when they watch the streets of Portland, when they watch what happened in New York City in just the last 6 or 7 months, but this was starting even 4 years ago when I came here, almost 4 years, can you believe it? These are people that don't like seeing what's going on in places like Portland and places like Chicago and New York and other cities and states. And I've heard these are people that love our country and they just don't like seeing it. So I don't know really anything about it other than they do supposedly like me, and they also would like to see problems in these areas, like especially the areas that we're talking about, go away, because there's no reason the Democrats can't run a city. And if they can't, we will send in all of the federal, whether it's troops or law enforcement, whatever they'd like. We'll send them in. We'll straighten out their problem in 24 hours or less. Okay?
Well, at the crux of the theory is this belief that you are secretly saving the world from this satanic cult of pedophiles and cannibals. Does that sound like something you are behind? Or
well, I haven't.
They say that you're really good. Do you believe them? And do you agree?
Like, yeah, this is so infuriating. The way she says this, like, they say you want to say something about satanic. Like, guess what, lady? Not everyone, like, unfortunately, thinks that stuff is just something to laugh at in this country. There's actually sizable people who see that sort of thing, and are like, wow, that's kind of concerning. There's a big movement concerned with that. Maybe I should look into that. It's just this is such an infuriating failure of the media here, that and just up their own ass with this.
They're asking the question as if everyone comes from their own line of thinking, which is just, I mean, from everything we've discussed, this question, the Brian Williams question that I mentioned to you, it's like all around the media does not understand that regular people are actually concerned about some of these things, whether you think these are valid concerns or not. The QAnon stuff obviously is bullshit. They don't know that. They don't know that. You got to tell them. You got to explain
why?
to them. You have to show them.
Because guess what? If they watched mainstream media in the fucking 90s, they would have saw all sorts of satanic shit all over the media. So guess what? I don't fucking blame them. And also, in case anybody who like kind of bought into that Satan stuff, here's the inside track on the satanic panic stuff. There actually were instances of like abuse by people who would like be in sort of satanic rooms. The satanic stuff was meant to discredit the accusers. So when they went to law enforcement, were like, I was abused and there's all these Satan heads and all this stuff down. Cops would be like, you're crazy. You probably like got this through like some sort of hypnosis thing, but clearly cuckoo, because we don't have any Satanists like that. That's what the satanic element is designed for, is to discredit accusers. People don't really believe in Satan.
Right. Brendan, could you finish that clip? Because I think what Trump says next is interesting too.
theory is this belief that you are secretly saving the world from this satanic cult of pedophiles and cannibals. Does that sound like something you are behind?
Well, I haven't heard that, but is that supposed to be a bad thing or a good thing? I mean, if I can help save the world from problems, I'm willing to do it. I'm willing to put myself out there. And we are, actually. We're saving the world from a radical left philosophy that will destroy this country. And when this country is gone, the rest of the world would follow. The rest of the world would follow.
Listen, a lot of people were so shocked by Trump saying that. And obviously, yes, it's crazy that the president of the United States is validating basically a conspiracy theory about him. But, I mean, people like to talk about how Trump is stupid. That was actually a really smart answer for Trump.
Yeah.
He didn't deny anything. He didn't take credit for anything. He basically, like, the reporter walked into her own trap. She set a trap for herself, and Trump made sure he took advantage of it. It was a really good answer if you are in that world. Like, just imagine that. Trump just basically took credit for doing a good thing while also basically saying, I didn't do any of that, because is it so bad if I did do that? I mean, it's like if someone asked you, like, people think you're a really smart person. That's a great thing. I am. What are you going to deny? Doing a good thing? Just take the credit, which he did. It's I just can't believe that that's what happened. Like, I just the idea
Can't
you would ask the question that way.
Can't you really, Matt? You've been watching clips of the lamestream media for quite some time now. She was so smug when she asked it too. Like, I really got him now. I'm really making him look like an idiot. I just wish I could see the look on her face after he gave that answer.
My disbelief, though, is just sort of like, I can't believe they even asked it in the first place. Like, can you imagine if, and I know people will say that
as a gotcha too.
Yeah, but could you imagine, like, Obama as president of the United States? Could you imagine if someone from a legitimate, as in not a far right wing media source, went to a press conference and asked Obama, "Excuse me, President Obama, can you tell me if Jade Helm is really occurring?" Like, no press would have asked Obama that. What are you doing bringing something up like that to the president, President Trump? And if you do feel like that's something necessary to bring up, how would you not at least converse with someone who is from that world and can give you the proper way to ask the question without sounding like you sounded?
Yeah.
I mean, all you have to do is ask him, they believe in X, Y, and Z. Do you really believe that this is happening and that what they say is accurate?
Or you could foreground
the
kidnappings and shit like that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You have, like, if you bring it up, you have to foreground the actual harm and have to say something that he has to disavow.
Yeah.
I agree with that. It's really hard to cover the far right. Like, normal journalists don't know how to do it. I'm not even sure if I know how to do it. And I've been watching the Fash for quite some time because they don't play by your normal bourgeois media rules.
I mean, for me, here's the easiest way to ask a QAnon question to someone like a Marjorie Greene or a Laura Loomer, if you want to basically make them, because you don't care about what their answer is going to be. You want to make them look ridiculous and dumb to the rest of the world. What you would say to them is, you believe that some of your soon-to-be coworkers are part of a satanic cult of child pedophile trafficking ring. How are you going to work with them? What are you going to do about it? I want to hear, because that's literally what they believe. Marjorie Taylor is going to walk into Congress come January 2021 and sit side by side with people that she's out there right now. She's saying, yeah, these people are satanic individuals who are touching children and trafficking kids, and she's going to sit down next to them and work with them. Why wouldn't she go in and take them down herself? Why don't she perform a citizen's arrest on the Democrats on the House? I want to hear, like, that's how you do it. What is her answer going to be? Because she's going to show up and sit right next to these people.
Well, sometimes you got to work from the inside.
Hey, I mean, on the other hand, Congress is where movements go to die. So maybe this is the end of QAnon.
I mean, it's where leftist movements go to
Take it,
die.
take it from the left, right?
I don't
Exactly,
know if
yeah.
the same laws apply, but
I don't think they do.
It would be cool if that were true.
I feel like QAnon is going to make use of their powers of Congress pretty well, unfortunately.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, the right's pretty. Look at the Tea Party; they're pretty good at. I mean, it's crazy that like people think the Tea Party is like, oh yeah, that dwindle. I mean, they're still like the Tea Party caucus in Congress, and they can actually hold shit up. Like they're not like Tea Party is not a non-entity.
Yeah,
Like,
no, they're just the Republican Party now.
Like,
you
we're
don't need to be
talking
rational to have power, basically.
Right.
Yeah,
we're going to be dealing with
especially-
QAnon for a long time.
Especially when there's no real opposition party to speak of. I mean, this feeds into maybe the Laura Loomer story, because I love the shock that all of these liberal media outlets still exhibit when Trump shows that he likes the QAnon people and other crazy, like, of course he does. Like this headline in the Washington Post, Laura Loomer's victory reveals Trump's priority, stoking, not policing his base. Like, did anyone think that Trump's priority was to police his base?
Policing a base is actually not something that's helpful for winning elections.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, tell that to the Democrats.
Well, I mean that we should. I kind of want to get to this Obama stuff, but that's the problem with the Democrats is like they think that their job is just maintain democracy as inherited through the ages, and Republicans view their job as destroying it, and every sort of like democratizing movement and thing we've accomplished in this country. And really, Democrats, you need to cultivate democracy. You need to get in there and
Yep. Our democracy muscles are weak and atrophied.
Who wants to set up the Obama ones?
What Obama ones are we talking about? I actually am. What are we talking about here?
DNC
The
stuff
speech from last night? Yeah.
Yeah. So
you could go ahead.
I don't have the sound sheet open actually, so if you might want to do.
All right. Let me. I actually just closed.
Oh
my God.
Where is it? Here we go. Oh, right. This is Obama. All right. So here's Obama from DNC Night 3.
There you go.
Nailed it.
This president and those in power, those who benefit from keeping things the way they are, they are counting on your cynicism.
It's true.
They know they can't win you over with their policies. So they're hoping to make it as hard as possible for you to vote and to convince you that your vote does not matter. That is how they win. That is how they get to keep making decisions that affect your life and the lives of the people you love. That's how the economy will keep getting skewed to the wealthy and well-connected.
Shut up.
How our health systems will let more people fall through the cracks. That's how a democracy withers, until it's no democracy at all. And we cannot let that happen. Do not let them take away your power. Do not let them take away your democracy. Make a plan right now for how you are going to get involved and vote. Do it as early as you can and tell your family and friends how they can vote too. Do what Americans have done for over 2 centuries when faced with even tougher times than this. All those quiet heroes who found the courage to keep marching, keep pushing in the face of hardship and injustice.
Wow. Yeah, if only there were something Obama could have done to convince people that the American political system actually is important to their lives.
Well, look, like I co-signed the content of a lot of his message, even though I would say with regards to making it more difficult to vote, you could apply some of those lessons about people who want to keep things the way they are about the Democratic Party and the primary process. But that said, go on, Jamie, you can.
He tried to appoint a payday lending lobbyist to the post office board.
Yeah. I mean, that's right. I mean, exactly.
And that's just one example. There's a long history of Obama basically saying, really great things, giving fantastic speeches, standing for, at least vocally and verbally, standing for some great causes and having some great positions, but then his actions just don't back it up.
And actually,
it's many, many things that covers.
I want to retract what I said about. Go ahead.
Maybe if he doesn't want people to fall through the cracks of our healthcare system, he shouldn't have organized against the only candidate that wanted to give everybody healthcare as a right.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, last night when I was watching Obama, my first thought was, we're not going to get campaign mode Obama. I mean, we got this really straight-laced, to the camera, stern talking Obama. I mean, I will say one thing: campaign Obama is actually like someone who can really fire people up and get them. I mean, that's what. I mean, I guess he didn't have the crowd
ready to go.
He didn't have the crowd behind him that he usually speaks to at these campaign events. But still, I mean, that's one of the things he's really. It's one of his strengths, actually, campaigning. And I felt like he's not President Obama, which
he's done with that. Like his whole message now is what's going to blow democracy is people getting too cynical about it, which, like, honestly, I retract what I said earlier about endorsing the content of that. That is not the problem, that people are getting too cynical. It's because power has not been used in a way that cultivates democracy and makes sure it lasts through the ages. And the only way to do that is to continue expanding it. And the Democrats haven't really been trying to expand democracy. They've been just trying to fight the Republicans who've been trying to foreclose on it. And I share, like, Obama's getting emotional there about that. And I share that. I think what the Republicans are doing with regards to making things difficult to vote in this country, I think it is something that people should, like, find sick in their heart. But again, like, it is the sort of thing where it's not in okay, the Senate's in our hands. It was literally in your hands. And I understand that there are certain things you won't be able to get done in 2 terms as president, but you're still acting on our current politics in ways that, like, engenders that cynicism, and then trying to act like that's not really what's happening. That's going to cause more cynicism. And, like, I don't think people should be so cynical that they can't tell the difference between Trump and Biden. I've lost patience for that conversation 5 years ago, honestly. But but I don't know who this speech is meant to be for. Like, I don't know what crowd is energized by saying I'm too cynical.
Well, I think he's talking to people who he thinks, and I don't know if this is really the thought process behind why these people didn't go out and vote. But he's not talking to people who are too ideological to go out and vote. He's not talking about the people who stand for something and don't go out to vote. He's talking about those people who Dems have been obsessed with in Wisconsin and Michigan and elsewhere, who basically saw Hillary and Trump and just saw them as the same without any real ideology behind their motive to not go out and vote. It was just like, yeah, nothing's going to really happen, so I'm not going to go out and vote. I mean, that's who I think he's talking to. I think he's talking to, and I remember specifically there was that, I think maybe it was in Washington Post, there was that article that came out shortly after the 2016 election where they spoke to, like, an owner of a black barbershop who basically said he didn't see any difference between the 2 candidates, so he didn't go out and vote. Now, I don't think people...
That was Malika Jabali's article, yeah.
Right.
There were a number of articles that had those conversations, and fair enough, the Democrats have made no effort to appeal to those people in any way, shape, or form. All they do is scold them.
Well, no, but they don't view those people as ideological. They don't look at them as, oh, those are the Bernie supporters, or that's the left, or that's a Green Party voter. They just look at someone. They just look at that as someone who just doesn't usually vote. They tune out. They don't really care about politics, and we could win them over by just saying, see what Trump has done, because a lot more people are paying attention. I mean, that's obviously a strategy that we'll see if it pays off. I don't think it does. But that's who I think he was talking to, people who are not ideological or political in nature, who came out and said last time around, yeah, we didn't see much of a reason to go out and vote. We usually don't. Maybe every now and then we do. But, that's who I think he was talking to.
Well,
and
why would those people be watching the DNC, though?
I mean, why would anyone be watching the DNC? Really? I mean, it is... I will say
that's because
it really
the message. Yeah, exactly. The message is not meant for those exact people. It's meant for the people who want to blame those people.
Yeah, exactly. He's laying the groundwork to blame people other than, the ones in charge of the Democratic Party, if and when, God forbid, they lose to Trump, which is a possibility.
I don't even know about that, though. I don't think they even need to do that really in the DNC, to be quite honest. I mean, they have the media doing that every single day for them. The DNC to me should be at least how I was reading it was to literally speak to rally their base.
Yeah, well,
maybe they were giving them the words to use to their next door neighbors and their friends, saying, hey, here's the strategy. Here's what we want you to say to them. I think that's actually more realistic, because they go on the media and say exactly who they want to blame all the time. I mean, last night, right after the DNC, I was listening to James Carville lament, how are we going to get the young people out to vote? James fucking Carville, of all people, the guy who was on MSNBC pretty much every single day during those weeks and months of the primary where Bernie was in the lead, talking about how dangerous and terrible Bernie was, all of a sudden going, how we can get the young people out now that we knocked out the single most popular young person candidate. I mean,
and then told them to
the
kick
mind.
rocks on the platform, basically.
Right, boggles the mind. But
yeah,
mean, that's
we're going to get nothing, and we're going to like it. And if we don't fall in line and vote for their shitty candidate, then it's our fault that Trump is president again. That's the line they're using. I mean, maybe other parts of Obama's speech were more rousing than this part, but it seems like not even Obama is excited about Biden. He can't even fake it.
He kind of marries those two ideas in this second clip that we have here.
Go ahead, Brendan.
To the young people who led us this summer, telling us we need to be better, in so many ways, you are this country's dreams fulfilled.
What?
Earlier generations had to be persuaded that everyone has equal worth. For you, it's a given, a conviction. And what I want you to know is that for all its messiness and frustrations, your system of self-government can be harnessed to help you realize those convictions. For all of us. You can give our democracy new meaning. You can take it to a better place. You're the missing ingredient. The ones who will decide whether or not America becomes the country that fully lives up to its creed.
Cool. Well, invite us into the fucking leadership then.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Honestly, get Pelosi the fuck out, get Schumer out, get Cory Bush up there, get whoever up there. But let's actually see if we're missing, then include us. Because look, I understand voters feel we like to say they don't feel any difference. They're wrong about that. They are wrong about that. I don't want to validate that opinion, even if it might be, one that their lived experience has taught them. But this sort of thing, it's just not getting it done. And I don't know. Go on.
Well, they are reaching out to the youth, Matt. I'm just looking right now, and there's some breaking news in the past hour. Nancy Pelosi has officially endorsed Joe Kennedy in his primary of.
Well, hopefully that will make a
Malarkey. I almost called the Malarkey, right? I almost called the Malarkey. Biden's seeping into my brain,
Yeah, well,
Maki.
That's probably what Biden calls him in his head.
Yeah, right. Well, people should donate to Markey or Buttar.
Also, here's the new message.
Scared, right?
Here's the new message, everyone. It is okay to primary Democrats. Primary the incumbent. Speaker of the House said it's
yes,
cool.
Exactly.
Primary the incumbents. No more feeling bad. Don't listen to those people logging on Twitter, adding you, saying, well, you're trying to divide the party at this time. No. The Speaker of the House said this is important to do. Primary every sitting Democrat.
Everyone.
It's your duty as a good Democrat to do so. The Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, wants you to.
Hell yeah. I'm agnostic about class struggle elections as a tactic, but I think it couldn't hurt. We don't know what's going to work in the end to get us socialism, folks. And I love to see, especially folks like some of the DSA endorsed candidates who are open socialists, just being Democrats in name only, running on the Democratic ballot line parasitically, but openly trumpeting their socialist beliefs and unapologetically fighting for, redistributive policies that move us in that direction.
That's how the nonpartisan league used the Democratic Party in North Dakota to make the bank, the Socialist Bank in North Dakota, that paid for me to go study abroad, actually.
Nice. See, it's paying off already.
Yep.
Obama just does not work on me anymore. He's like in the category of things like I don't know, The Daily Show or like Boy Meets World, perhaps, that I really liked when I was a stupid kid, and now I realize are trash.
Yeah. Are you that Alkaline Trio song, Jamie? I was just a stupid kid back then. I take back every word that I said. No, but like I mentioned earlier, like at least the give us campaign mode Obama, the one that at least from his the showmanship and how you just feed off the energy he's got when he's doing the campaign Obama.
The one who's very hard to hate.
Yes, at least give us that. And he didn't. I was really surprised. And it's not like, oh, it's a new Obama. No, campaign mode Obama showed up for Hillary. I guess he doesn't feel like he can do it without the crowd giving him that adrenaline rush. I don't know. But
yeah,
I mean,
he looks a little drained.
Yeah. I mean, it's possible to be fired up behind just behind a camera with no one around you. Take my word for it.
Maybe he needs to drink some more Rockstar energy drink.
Right. Exactly. Obama should just become an all-out promo guy. He should drive like one of those VW Beetles around handing out Rockstar energy for free at shows.
Whose dick do I have to suck to get a Red Bull around here?
Right here. I can't do I can't do a good Obama. All right, let's go back to the phones. Let me read some IMs really quick, and then I'll go back to the phones. Hi, Bear at Home too says, hi, old Matt. Why don't you do the intro? The other Matt doesn't seem comfortable doing it. And what did the other Matt think of Warren's speech? Actually, other Matt seems, at least the other, I don't know how comfortable he sounds. That's the beauty's in the eye of the beholder. He sounds great to me, but he certainly does it right at the very least. He gets the proper, me and Michael would always mess up the intro. It doesn't matter how we did it for 3 years. We would mess up the intro every single time we do the show.
Of the opening?
Yeah, the opening.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, the key is to script it out and just read it. I found that works
right.
really well.
We could have done that, but you have to understand how Michael and I did Matter Mike Mondays. We showed up and we threw a camera on and we got on camera.
Look, those days are nice.
Around.
Days Sam got a little bit more they call them casual Friday, folks. Not the real casual day of the week.
Right. So what did you think of? We should discuss this. I think what did you think of Warren's speech, Matt?
Did not watch it. Sorry.
Right.
Yeah.
I did not watch it. Her voice is like nails on a chalkboard to me. The DNC makes me angry. I'm prepping an episode on Black Marxism right now. That's taking up a lot of my time. I do think it's funny that she spoke to the Native American caucus.
All right.
Yeah. I mean, my general take on the DNC is the rhetoric and who they basically give placement to. It'd be nice to. Okay, I guess if they gave Ilhan a headlining speech, it probably would mean something significant for the party. But I don't think anything significant has changed in the party. So to be honest, them shafting AOC, them having all these Republicans up, I think it kind of just clarifies the issue. This isn't our struggle. I hope they win. Again, I hope that Biden wins 100% over Trump. But they're going to try to do this without us. And I'm not even sure that they find our presence helpful with Trump calling, BLM Marxist.
I tweeted out how, regardless of whether you want to give them a speech or not, they avoid them even in the little promo packages, the video packages they put together that literally showcases every single sitting Democrat but them. The Dems literally have the two first ever Muslim women in Congress right now. It's for a party so obsessed with identity politics. The first Black woman to be on the vice presidential ticket. The first every aspect. And these are all things that should be heralded. Fine, I'm not complaining about that. But it's just interesting how they avoid those same historic, game changers when they come from someone who's on the left. There is no reason why Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib should have not been. I mean, there was that package that showed like those rabble-rouser young women who got into office, and it was like that like rip-off all-white squad from like the Blue Dog caucus.
What did they call themselves?
I forgot.
I remember
something stupid. No, I think they called themselves the Squad. They called themselves like the something Squad. I don't know. The UAE Squad.
But they were promoting these middle-aged, upper-class white women who are freshmen. Okay, whatever. I'm not complaining, but they're promoting them as the game changers, the historic, history makers. But Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib. Not even a mention, not even a visual showcase of them in that same montage. Don't have to even highlight.
Yeah, the moderate squad, I guess, is what they called themselves.
It's like,
oh my God, the Karen crew.
That would have been much better.
Yeah,
it's almost like the Democrats' interest in identity politics is purely cynical and not connected to anything real.
Right. When it comes to Warren specifically, though, for me, I still. It's hard for me to talk about Warren. I know a lot of people are easy to just drop that, but someone who was just such a strong ally for as long as she was.
I got their name.
It will always feel like a stab to the heart for me. I see her and I'm like, oh.
Are you saying it's too soon?
Yes.
Like honestly, look.
Yeah, we got their name. It's these 5 women. They called themselves the badasses.
Oh my
God!
That's
it.
Okay.
That's it.
That's the name.
The badasses.
Nice.
Do you guys remember that package that CNN put together? That's what you're talking about,
yes.
right, Matt? Okay.
Yeah.
Do we want to play a little bit of that, or are we good?
No, I think we're good.
We've got other stuff to talk about. But one more point on the DNC. I don't know. Like the fact that AOC got shafted or whatever isn't necessarily a bad thing if you view the Democratic Party as your enemy, right? If they were taking steps to try to recuperate all of this left populist energy coming from groups like Justice Dems and DSA, I would actually be a little bit concerned that we need to guard against that.
That becomes a problem for the left.
Yeah. They're making it very clear that they are our enemies. They're making it clear to people to whom it was not clear before. And they are I don't know what they could do better to show that the Democratic Party, as it currently exists, must be fought and destroyed and salt the earth behind it. Repeal and replace it, folks. It's bad.
Yeah. There's a problem in other countries where, especially in Latin America and Central America, that leaders start talking in a populist sort of leftist vernacular and then get in and just do whatever the IMF says. That becomes a huge problem organized for the left. So, silver linings, folks. We don't have that problem right now.
Yeah. Seriously. And, sometimes when left-wing parties get in power, they also become the administrators of austerity because a lot of things are still overdetermined by capitalism and the World Bank has a lot of power. I'm thinking specifically about what happened with Syriza, where they just had to turn around and stab the Greek people in the back who elected them on this platform of telling the World Bank to go F itself. But if it is part of a longer term strategy to, stand up to capitalism using all the tools in our toolbox, and it's done in conjunction with other related but independent outside movements, it could be good, folks.
Well, it'd be interesting to do a Syriza type experiment in America and not in an economy as, peripheral as Greece has become.
Yeah, well, I just saw a story today that Biden is sort of quietly agreeing that we need to do something about the deficit, right?
Oh, yes.
The deficit hog. It's saying, we need to administer austerity. I'm like, wouldn't it be nice if we had a left-wing party to test out whether these kinds of decisions are purely a result of ideology and patronage, or if you could have the best people in there and they still can't stand up to the global capitalist system? Guess we'll never know.
That where you from?
All right, let's go back to the
Mic
IMs
drop
and
on
calls.
that.
Yeah, you end it on there, right? Marxist by Nature is the name of my Anne Prime jam band. It says Empire Burlesque. Blue Lives Matter is a career choice, not born blue, says The Void Reality. Big Dick Cheney Energy says, happy birthday, Matt. You're a Leo. My birthday is next week, but I'm a Virgo. I've never understood any of this. Yeah, neither have I. I've honestly never even...
I'm still only barely sure I'm a Capricorn.
Right. I sort of feel like that stuff approaches QAnon territory. So I think everyone needs to drop horoscopes. I feel like that's honestly that's the next group to jump into the QAnon pool. I mean,
I'd love it if QAnon just gets just devolves into like a nice little thing you see in the newspaper and you can relate to your friends with.
Right. Oh, I got to tell you guys something. I don't know if this got so much news in the political sphere because this is more of a tech thing, but it involves QAnon. So Facebook announced a big policy change yesterday. And one of the big policy changes is they want to add certain groups and movements that use their platform to their dangerous entity policy, but without actually classifying them as dangerous entities. So for example, they don't allow like ISIS on their platform, but there are groups that could approach that sort of those calls for violence, but the entire movement doesn't. So they can't really put them in that category. So in this announcement, they say how they will be basically flagging pretty much all stuff about these movements so they could basically track what's being said on these pages and groups. So they could determine whether A, that should be banned or not, or B, whether they should just suppress the stuff on the platform. For example, still let it exist on Facebook, but won't promote it in recommendations, won't let it show up in your feed. Like you have to specifically go to the page or into the group to find this stuff. And the groups that they say they will throw in here, and these are the two specifically named groups that they announced together, QAnon and Antifa. So both sides of them rears its ugly head in the most hilarious of ways. The idea that a movement run by conspiracy theorists who believe that a satanic cult is trafficking children around the world and that it's run by Hollywood liberals and the Democrats and is being sort of being stopped by Donald Trump in some way or shape or form is the same as a group of anti-fascists showing up to confront white supremacists marching in communities in the United States. I mean, it's quite frankly ridiculous. I just thought that's a fun little story.
We cannot trust private platforms to adjudicate this stuff.
Yeah. Right. I wanted to quickly do the story of Masai Ujiri. He's the president of the Raptors. And in 2019, as the Raptors were beating the Golden State Warriors for the championship, he went down to the court to try to celebrate with his team. And an altercation ensued. And we didn't really know what happened. And there was a bunch of talk on both sides. And we'll get to the claims of the sheriff's deputy that ends up shoving him. But it looks like I think it's Masai's legal team released body cam footage of the deputy that shoved him, and let's just watch this.
Wow. I mean, that is incredible. It is completely not surprising now that we know what we know about the police, but now that we've seen this footage, I mean, he actually gave this police officer more than I think most people would have in terms of the chance to. He lets him push him twice before he even gets.
He was
angry,
handing him his credentials too.
Yeah, he was literally pulling his credentials out. And I'm going to share a couple more tweets here, screenshots. In February, Strickland filed a federal lawsuit against Ujiri, the Raptors, Maple Leafs Entertainment, and the NBA, alleging Ujiri shoved him so hard on the court that he suffered physical injuries to his head, jaw, chin, and teeth. Strickland also filed a workers' comp claim alleging Ujiri circumvented the security. Again, we can see him pulling his credentials out in the clip. And then tried to storm the court and hit him in the face and chest with both fists. Strickland also claimed Ujiri had a violent predisposition. Look at just the lie of and acted with an evil motive amounting to malice. We'll continue here. Strickland alleged he suffered a shock of injury to his nervous system. And then we also have this note. Strickland's past criminal history is also troubling, legal analyst said. In March, KTVU broke an exclusive story revealing that in 1994, Strickland was arrested and later convicted of insurance fraud. Now, insurance fraud is not nearly as bad as lying as a cop when you've done something like that. And I mean, I just think it's amazing. Masai Ujiri, like the C-suite of the NBA, right? Like president of the Raptors, gets profiled by this psycho who, like, a history of fraud, become a deputy. Yeah, of course. And I mean, man, just that his willingness and I guess confidence to lie that just severely in an arena of like a major sporting event where there's all these HD cameras, you're wearing a body camera. It tells you the problem of lying in cops is much bigger than this individual. They know that they can participate in this culture that gets them off.
Yeah, I'm sure that's it. I also wonder how much of it is that he recalled doing those things, but just didn't see anything wrong with it. Like it's just ingrained that it's completely natural for a police officer to shove whoever they want, to treat anyone however they want. They're the law, and you have to respect their authority. And that's just that I'm sure it's a combination of both. I'm sure he's lying, and also as he goes through the events in his head, he sees absolutely nothing wrong with what he did. But just the idea that he, again, for people who are listening to the podcast, the president of the Raptors walks up and he's taking out his credentials, and the cop stops him, which fine at first, but before he even gets a chance to finish pulling out his credentials, the cop really hard pushes him back. And the president of the Raptors sort of just looks at him like confused, approaches him again with the credentials fully out now. So now you're thinking, okay, if the first part of it, if you want to give the guy the benefit of the doubt, the first part of it's done, credentials completely out, everything should be, oh, I'm sorry for doing that, go ahead. No. The officer once again violently pushes the president of the Raptors back and then like curses him out and yells at him. And the president of the Raptors completely level-headed. And then at that point, after the second push and then giving the cop a second to curse him out, he gets a little bit upset, which I think anyone would have.
Yeah. The cops are motherless swine. They lie all the time. That is very normal for them. And the media reports it often quite credulously. So I'm glad, at least in this one instance, we have proof that they're lying.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's heartbreaking to watch like Masai's, the look of recognition as he understands what's happening on his face. Like, fucking A, man. Fuck cops. I'm sorry. I'm swearing way too much today. But anyway, it's just so infuriating.
Even if you were to assume that this guy knew that this guy was part of the Raptors front office, a cop reacting like a pissed off fan, like just like some douchebag in the stands, is pathetic and like such a it just makes me so mad.
Masai gets you reach at your moment of triumph, you win, your team wins the NBA championship. You're trying to go onto the court to celebrate with them, and you have a massive racial abuse of power by a fucking cop. It's disgusting. And this cop is saying he's had his emotionally well-being take a blow since. Well, good.
Yeah. I'd say this is worth some F-bombs. Yeah. Don't worry. Should we take another call?
Yeah, let's take some calls. Yeah, let's take calls.
I want to get to this Laura Limmer thing.
All right, let's do another call or two, and then we'll do that last one, I guess.
Yeah.
301. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey guys, this is Master Connor from Maryland.
Sup, Master Connor? Are you a MC or something? What is is that your name? Your MC name or something?
Oh no, I teach Taekwondo.
Oh, well, there we go.
I have a small business over here in Maryland.
That's awesome. My 5-year-old takes Taekwondo. He loves it.
Well, if they need any tips, I got we do a lot of Zoom classes, and I have a little YouTube channel and stuff. But that's not what I'm here to promote. I have the same birthday as you, so that's why I was calling in. And even though I don't believe in the crap, we are actually Virgos. We're the first day of Virgo, August 23rd.
Ah, okay. Would you like to sell me?
You, me, and Kobe. So, no, not at all. But yeah, since COVID, we can't really have big birthday parties. At least we'll be celebrating in solidarity.
Hell yeah.
But I had a couple of little quick things. Mostly just wanted to fillet you guys a little bit. You guys have been killing it on Thursday. Jamie and the Mats. And as much as I love and miss Michael, you guys on Michael Thursdays, it kind of goes cut short a little bit. Usually 2:00, he's ready to run out the door, and you guys have been, really staying till like 3, doing really long, full show. So I would use that as a bargaining chip if you're trying to negotiate with Sam on a nice fat contract later on.
Right.
And also,
it's a great point. And
Jamie,
the skills of being a Taekwondo business owner just shining through right there in terms of money making opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, I make zero money, and I'm the only one who's legally on the books. My boss / co-owner is an illegal, so it's been actually pretty tough recently. But enough about me. Like I said, I wanted to fillet you guys. Jamie, not that you're not always on fire, but you've really been killing it today with the on point and spicy takes. Just wanted to give you some props.
Well, thank you.
And Brendan, always witty and lurking in the shadows, but ready with the witty quips. I respect it. And
Thank
Matt,
you, Master.
Killing it.
Which Matt?
You're
Matt's
welcome,
killing
my
it?
student.
Which Matt is killing it? That's the question.
I already filleted you, Bender. Come on, relax. This is for Auto Matt Leck, who's been killing it. Not only leading the way on TMBS with Leisha and David, carrying the mantle. You guys doing awesome stuff over there, but then also doing all you can to fill some big shoes on the majority port as well. Respect and fillets all around.
Thank you, man.
Why, thank you. I'll take
Thanks
it.
a lot for the call, Master. Master Connor,
Anytime,
right?
guys.
Master Connor, take care.
Yep. Master Connor, August 23rd, you and me.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday to you. See you guys.
Thank you.
Oh, that's a very good call.
The funny thing is, throughout my entire life, people have always, whether it was in school, different groups of friends, whatever, I always people just always automatically started calling me by my last name, Binder. Yet for some reason, the one arena where this would be very helpful for people to call me by my last name, where there's another Matt, no one seems to be doing it. Everyone just keeps going Matt and doesn't seem to really say exactly which Matt they're talking about.
I think that's a work versus social relationship sort of thing. Because I have the same thing.
I was at
a job where there were two Brendans, one of whom is like pretty famous online, and me.
Mm-hmm.
And he was there before me, so they called him Brendan, and then they called me Finn. And having my boss call me Finn was like, I felt like I was at like a investment firm or something like that.
Yeah,
like a bratty place.
Totally. Like, hey, you don't know me like that. Please address me by my Christian name. Yeah, who was the famous Brendan?
It was Brendan.
You guys can figure it out. You sleuth around.
Did you work with Brandon Straka from the Walk Away campaign?
That's Brandon. That's Brandon.
Oh, right, that's Brandon, right? That's Brandon, right?
Bastardized version.
Who is now? This gonna be bothering
Brendan always leaves us wanting more.
There's like 900 Brendan podcast producers though in the world of podcasting.
Did you work with Brendan Urie of Panic at the Disco?
I did, yeah. It was Brandon Urie of Panic at the Disco.
I'm trying to think. I don't know. All right, we can go to.
Go home, think about it. come back tomorrow, give him your guesses.
Right.
So I really wanted to get to this because it's been a minute since we checked in on our girl, Laura Loomer. Now,
yeah.
You probably know even more about her than I do, Matt B, because you are an internetologist of the far right. But among the things she is known for are getting kicked off of all the ride-sharing platforms because she was complaining about Muslim drivers. Specifically, she could not find a driver who wasn't Muslim. And she got kicked off of Twitter and then subsequently chained herself to Twitter headquarters in order to protest her deplatforming. But she didn't do a very good job. Everyone was just kind of walking around her and giving her funny looks. Now, Laura Loomer has actually, maybe she's having the last laugh because she has won a congressional primary in the District of Florida that covers Mar-a-Lago and received props in a tweet from none other than President Trump himself. So I'm thinking maybe she is doing this because she thinks it will help her get her Twitter account back. But as of yet, that has not happened. And we know that she cares a lot about her Twitter account and her social media presence because she, a while back when she got deplatformed, appeared on InfoWars and just really freaked the fuck out to the point where even Alex Jones was like, calm down, honey. So I think in order to celebrate really her win and her rise in American politics, nothing bad about that, totally healthy democracy. I'd like to play a clip of her appearing on InfoWars and raging against the unfair treatment that she had received from the private company known as Twitter.
Crazy, but what are they doing? I want to know what people are actually going to do. My life is ruined. Does anybody understand how ruined my life is? I'm sick of it. I don't want to listen to people tell me that I'm a conspiracy theorist. They don't know what it's like to be me. My life is ruined, Alex.
No, I understand. I just think you need to go with it. And, I understand. I've been through this myself.
Because Alex Jones is actually he's a despicable human being, terrible. You can say whatever you want about him, but he also knows how to play the game. He knows that when he got deplatformed, he could easily use that to help buoy his subscribers, get more money, bolster his email list, do whatever he needs to do to take advantage of the situation. Laura Loomer doesn't have that mindset. She doesn't have the guerrilla mindset.
She didn't then, at least.
Yeah. Right, well, she didn't then, right? One thing that's interesting to me about Laura Loomer is just the longevity of her being in this. She really has pulled through. Like she is, I was thinking about
she's raised a ton of money.
Hey, nevertheless, she persisted.
Hey, I tweeted that, man. You ruined my thing. That's what I was going to say.
Did you? Oh, no.
Yeah. I was going to, because I was thinking about Milo, Gavin, Lauren Southern, the Pettibone twins. I mean, I could think of the list goes on about all these right wingers who were really big in the early days of the Trump campaign, all throughout the early days of his presidency, who sort of just dropped off the radar, whether they checked out themselves because they couldn't do it anymore. They couldn't handle all the heat anymore, or they got deplatformed and just decided to disappear because they couldn't think of how to continue going. Laura Loomer, nevertheless, like you said, she persisted. She has stuck around, and she's moved up on in the world from when she literally handcuffed her hands to the front door of Twitter headquarters. Do you guys remember her doing that?
That was in New York, right?
Yeah, that was in New York. And
I believe
Pat Krieger with the famous video, I remember.
or when she got kicked out of the RNC for not having credentials. She didn't let that dissuade her.
Right.
She persisted. She stays persisting.
I remember the first time she showed up on my radar, and again, it was someone who was completely dropped off the face of the planet. One of those like 4chan-esque shitposting YouTubers, Brittany Venti, I think her name is. She's still a YouTuber, but she sort of doesn't care about talking politics anymore. she would go to the early 2017 rallies, whether it was for to protest the Muslim ban of people coming into of Muslim people coming to the country, or protesting the deportations of undocumented people. She would show up and harass the people protesting. And one time, I think it was May Day, actually, 2017, she got arrested for getting too handsy with someone, and she handed off her Periscope stream to her buddy, Laura Loomer. And that's the first time Laura Loomer got into the spotlight. Her friend was taken away, and Laura Loomer took over her live stream. And she's been
a legend.
Yeah, she's been there ever since, right?
Wow, she's gonna be president someday. It's gonna be great.
Here's Laura chained to the Twitter headquarters from 2 years ago.
Is she playing that music?
Yeah, on the bullhorn.
She's also wearing a Star of David because, Laura Loomer getting kicked off Twitter is just like the Holocaust.
Right. Another fantastic Laura Loomer moment, not to reminisce on all the good times, but do you remember when she showed up at that Shakespeare in the Park where they presented Caesar as Trump? She went with Jack Posobiec, and
friend of
they interrupted the free Shakespeare in the Park, screaming gerbils. Do you remember gerbils? They were going gerbils. Oh man, it was good times.
Good times, and all part of the beautiful documentary that will someday be made about President Loomer.
All right, folks.
To really, she's not going to win. She's unlike Marjorie, who's a sure thing. Loomer's not going to win. I don't know if you guys know who. I mean, she's running against someone who got 10 times the number of votes she did in the primary. So yeah, but congrats, Loomer, for winning the primary at the very least. Right.
Yeah, girl.
You guys want to?
No, let's wrap.
Oh, that's all right, guys. That's the show for today. This is actually the final episode that I am officially booked for. So I bid you all adieu. I don't know if I'll be back. It's up to Sam Cedar. You can let him know you liked me on this show if you want. But other than that, see you tonight, youtube.com/Matt Binder. Nomiki of the Nomiki Show will be on to walk us through the DNC, wrap it up with me right after it's over. Thanks so much for watching on these episodes where I was on with the MR crew. It means a lot to me that Sam handed it over to me to help the show in its trying times, and someone said, likened me to a uncle who moves in with a family after a loss. So I'm basically the majority port's Uncle Jesse from Full House. Yeah, really appreciate it, guys. It's been my pleasure to be with you three. I think Jamie, Matt, Brendan, I think you guys are all fantastic and great. And it was a lot of fun, and maybe I'll be back, maybe I won't, but I enjoyed the time I was here.
And tomorrow, guys,
see you later.
Tomorrow we've got Nomiki's going to be hosting the show. We actually have to get to a call about that right now. So we will see you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
Oh wait, this is the wrong one.
Damn, that's a lot of Nomiki you guys are gonna get. Her show at the DNC this afternoon, then Doomed tonight, and then on the Majority Port tomorrow.
There we go. Here we go.
The week of Nomiki.
I'll tune in. I'll learn some stuff.
But I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the light bulb. But finding out won't make me feel any better. get